Our clueless king had no idea the legendary greatsword he painstakingly mastered just to wield could be casually swung around with one hand by the dude standing right in front of him. The sight of it left literally everyone dumbfounded, as you can imagine. And you gotta remember, this sacred blade was notoriously heavy and unyielding. Most ordinary folks couldn't even budge it an inch, let alone actually swing it around. But our utterly oblivious MC had absolutely no clue this was a legendary divine weapon. What's even funnier is he just saw it as a perfectly sized tool for clearing grandma's drain ditch, so naturally, he immediately planned to use it for canal maintenance. This line of thinking makes sense given our MC was essentially just a big, burly country boy. Due to his humble hardscrabble upbringing, this young man, Nu, was constantly grinding at all sorts of odd jobs to earn extra income. From clearing sewers to hauling heavy loads, Nu tackled every task with such gusto, his bosses were practically showering him with praise. Right after his salary notification dinged on his phone, Nu heard desperate distress calls echoing from a nearby cave. And just like that, his inner busybody flared up. He rushed straight inside to see what the heck was going on. There, Nu witnessed a squad of soldiers preparing for an extremely tense showdown with a freakishly enormous mutated cow. This was a monster Nu had literally never seen in his entire life. Nu himself was born and raised in a rural backwater, practically the boonies of the kingdom's far northwest. He lost his father early, and his mother was afflicted with an incurable illness. So, besides caring for his mom, he had to bend his back and shoulder all the household responsibilities, big and small. After finishing all his chores, Nu planned to hunt some game and gather fruits to make a nutritious soup to boost his mother's health. But his mother's condition kept taking a turn for the worse, leaving him absolutely racked with worry. Knowing she was about to kick the bucket, his mother tearfully apologized to Nu for having nothing to leave him. At the same time, she urged him to always live his life to the fullest and pursue his passions. That evening, Nu cooked the soup with all his heart, desperately hoping his mother would make a quick recovery. However, the moment he stepped into the room, Nu froze for a good 5 seconds, realizing his mother had already passed away. The next morning, Nu had no choice but to bury his mother next to his father's grave. Though he was depressed and heartbroken beyond measure, Nu still tried to put on a brave face, refusing to give in to fate. After the tragedy, Nu returned to his routine, spending his days with fields and gardens and raising chickens. Evenings were for hitting the books, while days were spent in the forest, chopping wood and hunting. Life was a bit lonely and cold, but Nu gradually got used to this new operating system. This self-sufficient lifestyle helped him grow way more mature and level-headed. One evening, Nu stumbled upon a book his father had carefully tucked away on a shelf. As he pulled it out to read, Nu realized this was the very collection of fairy tales his father used to tell him as a child. Among them was a story about a battle-hardened adventurer who single-handedly took down a giant dragon with just one sword strike. This dude possessed over-the-top power, achieved numerous legendary feats, and whenever he saw injustice, he'd swing his sword to smite evil. Nu was absolutely hooked and demanded to hear every single detail. From that day on, our cozy lead began dreaming of becoming the strongest adventurer on the server. Since his mom always wanted him to live life on his own terms, the next morning Nu woke up early, herded the goats, fed the chickens, then respectfully bade his parents farewell at their graves before setting off to chase his dreams. This was his first time ever leaving the village, and while our country boy was naturally a little overwhelmed, Nu quickly shook off the nerves and pressed onward. Along the way, he was constantly on edge, worried about accidentally stumbling into some monster. After days of trekking through forests and streams, he finally arrived at the first town of the G Kingdom. As soon as he reached the city gates, Nu asked a guard for directions to the Adventurers Guild. Stepping inside, his jaw practically hit the floor, wide-eyed at all the fancy, never-before-seen wonders surrounding him. Before long, Nu found himself standing at the town's Adventurers Guild. But the guildmaster there clearly saw him as just a kid, telling him to go home before his parents started worrying. Hearing this, Nu honestly confided that he was actually an orphan. Seeing his unfortunate circumstances, the guildmaster took pity on him and decided to show him the ropes. He explained that if Nu wanted to become an adventurer, he first needed to learn some actual skills. Specifically, he recommended Nu visit the vocational schools sponsored by the king to see if his talent lay in swordsmanship or magic. Nu was ecstatic and immediately grabbed his bag and headed out. Fueled by his dream of becoming a dragon-slaying sword hero, he immediately chose the Swordsmanship Academy. All the other students here seemed to awaken some seriously cool elemental powers after just a short time. But Nu toiled there for an entire month, making absolutely no progress, to the point where his teacher had to advise him to turn the car around before he wasted any more time. Turns out, after a whole month of torturous training, Nu had only managed to unlock one basic skill, a simple counterattack. So the teacher suggested he find a different profession, something a little less hero-like. Leaving the Sword Academy, Nu switched to the Warrior Academy, thinking that warriors could use many types of weapons or act as a shield for their comrades. Even after training so hard his skin practically peeled off, Nu only managed to boost his physical stats. His trainer just shook his head and told him to try his luck elsewhere. However, the Hunter Academy flat-out rejected Nu because he had absolutely no knack for bows and arrows. The Thief Academy also failed him right at the parking lot round. Even the Magic Master was left speechless after seeing Nu could only produce a flame no bigger than a candle. But Nu wasn't a quitter, so he applied to the Priest Academy next. Lacking both the glorious MC plot armor and any blessings from the gods, he could only learn the most basic healing spell. After 3 months of tireless effort, Nu returned to the Adventurers Guild. The Guildmaster was utterly shocked to hear that Nu had gone through every single training course, only managing to learn one basic skill from each academy. So, he regretfully advised Nu to go back home and herd ducks, because the guild simply couldn't accept such a trash-tier adventurer. Back home, Nu reported his situation to his parents, feeling utterly disheartened that he seemed to possess no innate talent whatsoever. Even so, Nu was still determined to make up for his lack of talent with sheer diligence. So our boy DIY'd a wooden sword, then strung up a bunch of logs on trees for some target practice. His old sword master always said, if you truly mastered one skill, new ones would just naturally pop up. From then on, Nu grinded day and night, no breaks. After a year, our boy's swordsmanship saw some serious glow-up. A light swing was enough to knock away 10 wooden logs. Fast forward 3 years, and Nu was casually batting away 100 logs in a single go. Even though he hadn't unlocked any mystical new skills like his teacher promised, that burning passion for log slashing was still going strong. He practiced so hard, he pretty much annihilated a mountain of wooden swords. 15 years later, Nu had officially reached the God-tier log sweeper realm, knocking away 1,000 logs in one go. It was at this point he realized his old master was a total fraud, because he hadn't learned a single new skill. So Nu bid farewell to his parents once more, setting off to try his luck one last time. If he bombed again, then he'd finally throw in the towel. Maybe. Back at the guild, Nu honestly told the receptionist he only knew one ultimate skill, counterattacking, plus a few other random tricks. Naturally, the receptionist flat-out refused his registration. Just then, the guildmaster himself showed up, and Nu was so relieved he almost cried tears of joy. At first, the guildmaster didn't even recognize Nu. After 10 years, our boy's glow-up was so extreme he looked like a completely different person. Nu then launched into his sob story, explaining how he'd practiced his butt off for years, but the only thing that leveled up to an insane degree was his ultimate counterattack skill. Seeing his plight, the guildmaster decided to explain the adventurer ranking system. S rank was the top tier, obviously, and E rank was basically the bottom of the barrel. And to even be an E rank adventurer, you needed at least 2 ultimate skills. Nu heard that and immediately got super bummed, thinking, well, this adventure is officially cancelled. Luckily, the guildmaster took pity on him, reminding him that below E rank, there was still the super secret F rank. The catch was, F rankers weren't allowed to hunt monsters. They were only permitted to do odd jobs around the city. Not to mention, F rankers also had to fork over a hefty cut of their earnings to the guild. So, the master figured Nu probably wouldn't want to be a measly, broke F ranker. However, Nu wasn't about to miss this chance, so he immediately signed up to be the lowest tier adventurer. Seeing how absolutely determined our boy was, the guildmaster had no choice but to approve his application. Clutching the adventurer card in his hand, Nu was absolutely ecstatic, like he'd just won the lottery. He quickly snatched up every single task the guildmaster threw his way. For his inaugural quest, Nu used his physical enhancement skill to casually transport some goods. Next, he busted out his ninja leg skill to expertly track down a slippery runaway cat for its owner. And the inevitable cat scratches? He just casually healed them up with a simple recovery spell. At the end of the day, it was time to chill, shower, and get some well-deserved rest. The next morning, Nu got another wholesome quest. In his free time, our boy Nu just wanted to chill, playing with the local kids in town. That night, Nu sat down, just contemplating life. He'd finally achieved his dream of becoming an adventurer, mostly to help out folks. Asking for anything more felt a little greedy, to be honest. So for Nu, these simple days of odd jobs around town were more than enough. Until one day, Nu suddenly heard cries for help echoing from inside a cave. Rushing in, he saw a group of soldiers struggling against some kind of bull-headed monster. Nu had only seen creatures like this in books, but never imagined it'd be this ridiculously huge in real life. The bull roared once, and these so-called brave guards immediately panicked, scrambling to protect the princess. But before anyone could react, the bull swung its axe, sending their captain flying a good 10 meters. Nu tried to rush in and heal him, but the old guy took a critical hit and was instantly done for. The bull continued its rampage, mercilessly wiping out the rest of the guards, splitting them in two with every swing of its axe. In no time, the bull had cleared out all the soldiers, leaving the princess in a full-blown panic, thinking this was the end of her arc. But Nu, ever the chill hero, calmly used his rock-throwing skill to draw the monster's attention to himself. The monster immediately turned its car towards Nu, forcing him to keep running in circles to maintain a safe distance. Seeing the bull preparing to charge with its horns, Nu stood his ground, activating his counter skill and knocking it aside. But the bull quickly recovered, forcing Nu to continuously use his counter to defend himself. The sheer weight of the axe made Nu realize that one hit, and he'd be instantly wiped out too. Not to mention, his sword was already chipped to hell and back. After a long back-and-forth struggle with the beast, while the princess remained chained and unable to escape, the monster suddenly switched targets to the princess, catching both of them off guard. But Nu, with his ninja-like footwork, lunged forward just in time to knock away its axe. The only problem was, his crappy sword was now completely trashed. Nu then remembered his father's old words. An adventurer, no matter how dire the situation, must always protect the weaker ones. So even if he didn't see himself as the main character, he was determined to protect this girl no matter what. The moment the monster swung its axe, Nu put all his power into one final, epic counter, sending the axe flying back and cleanly severing the monster's head. As soon as the monster bit the dust, the princess's magical restraints conveniently vanished. Meanwhile, Nu was busy beating himself up, thinking he was too trash, struggling so long just to defeat one measly bull monster. At this point, the princess was profusely thanking Nu and asking for his identity. But Nu just quietly left, claiming an insignificant shrimp like him wasn't worthy of having his name known. The royal guards then burst in to find the princess safe, while Nu just ambled back home, deep in thought. The next morning, he made a solemn vow to work even harder from tomorrow on. The royal army quickly arrived to clean up the battlefield. Just looking at the giant axe and the colossal bull's corpse, you knew. A seriously epic battle just went down here. The princess also expressed her sincere condolences for the soldiers who bravely bit the dust protecting her. Her trusty bodyguard, Ines, so bowed her head in apology for showing up fashionably late. Turns out the princess was just coming off some ancient, super-secret succession ritual, which meant her elite guard couldn't even join. So yeah, Ines was totally off the hook for this one. At this point, the chief bodyguard reminded her to hurry back to the palace to meet the crown prince. According to Crown Prince R, those bull-headed monsters usually just chill out in the deepest levels of the labyrinth. So for one to pop up right in the middle of the city, that's just next-level bonkers. The chief guard also dropped some intel about a ring belonging to a merchant who recently kicked the bucket right there. Apparently, this ring was the monster magnet, so he brought it to Sorcerer Oaken for a magical checkup. Lo and behold, the ring was engraved with an enchantment straight from the nefarious demon nation of Doritos. Doritos had been trying to start beef with the Kingdom of Glace for ages, so the Crown Prince immediately guessed their true motive: assassinate the princess, ignite a war, and snatch Glace's ridiculously rich labyrinth resources. Ren was also super curious about the mystery man who saved his sister. The guy took down a monster with a literal garbage sword, then poofed into thin air like a ghost, leaving zero traces. Naturally, the prince was desperate to track down Nu, to personally thank him and shower him with rewards. Meanwhile, Nu just waltzed into the guild to pick up a new quest, and the guild master's eyes nearly popped out of his head. He rattled on about some ridiculously terrifying monster that appeared at the labyrinth entrance yesterday. Figured Nu had been mashed into a fine paste. But Nu, being Nu, just casually mentioned he was super tired yesterday and went home early for some beauty sleep. Then he noticed some shady characters tailing him, so he just noped out and zoomed straight home. Hearing this, the guildmaster silently thanked the stars our boy was still breathing, because even an A-rank veteran like him wouldn't bet on who'd come out on top against that thing. Nu heard that and thought, yep, turns out real-life monsters are just as terrifying as the textbooks say. Good thing I only ran into some weak, run-of-the-mill bull, otherwise I wouldn't be here for my shifts. After the chat, the guildmaster paid him for the quest and advised him to find a new career, since this one barely pays the bills. Right on cue, the princess used some fancy magic to poof into existence right behind Nu, declaring she'd finally found him. Turns out she used a high-tier tracking skill to pinpoint his exact location. Despite having a whole arsenal of top-tier magic herself, she felt utterly insignificant compared to his ridiculously overpowered strength. The princess's sudden appearance sent the entire guild hall into a frenzy. The guildmaster frantically leaned in, whispering to Nu to maybe tone down his usual chill vibe and show some respect, unless he wanted to get insta-cancelled by royalty. After that, the princess pulled out her invisibility magic so they could chat without a million eyeballs on them. Nu, still clueless that this little sister was actual royalty, just casually followed her lead. Meanwhile, the street was swarming with soldiers desperately searching for him. But thanks to that invisibility spell, they weren't finding squat. After a bit, our resident princess, saved by mere coincidence, stopped to thank Nu for his casual heroism. She admitted that without his timely rescue, that cow of a monster would have totally wiped the floor with her. So our princess immediately went full simp mode, offering Nu the ultimate reward, her entire royal fortune and even herself. Yikes. But our unbothered farming king, being the picture of humility, said a simple thank you was more than enough, no need for all that fuss. The princess, being from the I don't understand the concept of a budget upper class, declared her conscience would literally haunt her if she didn't properly flex a repayment. So she planned to beg her dad to just hand Nu an entire dominion to run as its lord. Just another day, right? Naturally, our boy politely declined, which apparently triggered an immediate princess-level crying fit right there. She insisted it was her solemn duty to repay the debt, and if Nu didn't accept, she'd stage a permanent royal-grade sit-in right on the spot. Hearing this, Nu had a sudden flashback to his student days, when he'd stubbornly badger his teachers until he got what he wanted. So recognizing a fellow master tantrum thrower, he finally caved and agreed to meet her dad. But with one crucial condition: absolutely no valuable rewards or fancy titles. Just wanted to make that clear. Our delighted princess, practically vibrating with excitement, then casually whipped out some stealth magic to smuggle him in. Standing before the absolutely massive, flexing on everyone palace, our country boy just assumed it was some random billionaire's mansion. He just figured this girl was definitely a pampered, spoiled rich kid from a seriously loaded family. En route, she asked his name for convenience, and then immediately introduced herself as Ren, practically begging Nu to use the intimate version. Classic. Nu, still oblivious, just assumed Ren was some rich heiress. No wonder the innkeeper had warned him to be super polite and not mess with her family. Just then, a stoic-looking lady named Ines walked past, and Ren immediately grilled her about her father's whereabouts. Ines reported the king was in the war room with the crown prince, and Ren, without missing a beat, introduced Nu as her personal savior from yesterday's monster mishap. Upon hearing this, Ines looked worried sick and immediately insisted on tagging along to protect the princess. Meanwhile, Nu just casually assumed Ines was the family's super serious headmaid or something. No wonder her eyes had that I'm watching you thief vibe going on. A little further, the squad ran into this spear-wielding dude named Jubert. And this guy, a real charmer, immediately pointed his spear right at Nu's face, making our boy wonder if this whole family was just a bunch of fancy thugs. Ines, ever the professional, quickly clarified that Nu was a distinguished guest. But then she immediately added that since Nu was very dangerous, she needed Jubert to escort them into the audience chamber. And just for extra measure, she called in an entire squad of bodyguards, just in case our unassuming lead decided to go full Kingslayer mode. Jubert, looking mildly confused himself, but clearly not paid enough to question it, silently fell in line to escort the princess. Ines then led them to the king and the crown prince, who were knee-deep in End of the World, talks about a looming war with the demon empire of Doritos. Apparently those local bullies had sent an ultimatum demanding the king hand over their entire legendary labyrinth, promising Kingdom G a status upgrade in return. How generous. But the king, knowing full well that losing the labyrinth meant losing the kingdom, flat out refused. This naturally made the demon empire super salty, so they declared war by unleashing assassination monsters on the king saw what was up, and decided he had to personally get involved this time. Just then, the princess brought Nu in for an audience. But our clueless country boy here still just thought this was the princess's extremely wealthy dad. Seeing the princess still rocking her hermit's cloak, Ren knew instantly she had snuck out again, and she immediately confessed she absolutely had to find Nu. After his daughter's introduction, the king instantly recognized our cozy lead as the savior. Meanwhile, Nu quickly apologized for not knowing the proper etiquette for dealing with literal royalty, accidentally flexing his humble origins. But the king just let out a hearty laugh, telling our unbothered MC to chill out and just be himself for easier conversation. The king started by offering his profound gratitude to Nu, but our MC just casually replied, "Yeah, that's enough. I'm gonna head home and take a bath now." But the king was like, "Nah, bro, I can't let you leave empty-handed." He then proceeded to offer Nu everything from vast lands to mountains of gold, basically saying, "Just point at it and it's yours." When Nu just casually shook his head, the king immediately upped the ante, offering treasures from the royal labyrinth. Apparently, Kingdom G owns the world's oldest labyrinth, so he was offering our MC half of all the epic loot they'd ever collected from it. But our accidentally overpowered country boy just kept insisting he didn't need any expensive gifts. A simple thank you was totally enough for him. What a flex. Seeing how utterly incorruptible our cozy lead was, the king went back to his throne and pulled out his own legendary greatsword. The crown prince immediately freaked out, begging his dad not to give that away, but the king just chuckled, saying he was retired, so it was basically just a fancy hunk of scrap metal to him. He said despite its somewhat worn-out look, he had a feeling Nu would love it. Holding the greatsword, Nu immediately felt like he was holding 1,000 pounds of pure plot armor, instantly knowing it was some ridiculously precious item he definitely shouldn't accept. But the king, continuing his chill flex, just shrugged and claimed it was just some rusty sword I found while backpacking. Hearing such a convincing lie, our unbothered MC finally relented, accepting the junk just to make the king happy. The king casually told him to give it a swing. Nu, thinking nothing of it, just applied a quick physical enhancement spell and gave it a tiny little flick, instantly unleashing a hurricane that ripped through the entire palace. Everyone watching was absolutely dumbfounded, jaws practically on the floor, because nobody expected some country boy to casually one-hand a sword that supposedly weighed 1,000 pounds. The king, laughing hysterically, admitted Nu was ridiculously OP, and then immediately tried to rope him into being the princess's personal tutor, since she apparently gets into danger if she even breathes wrong. But our unbothered MC, ever the wise and chill philosopher, felt that parents shouldn't meddle too much in their kids' lives. He said Ren should probably make her own decisions about that. After casually accepting his new scrap metal gift, Nu bid the king farewell and headed out. As he walked off, casually holding the legendary greatsword, he was wondering what to even use it for when he had an epiphany. Its width was perfect for cleaning out the drainage ditch back home. Yep, using this legendary blade to clean out his village's ditches, he'd be the coolest farmer in the whole damn neighborhood. Accidental sovereignty, baby? Just then, our next potential waifu, Ines, arrived to have a private chat with Nu. First, she immediately apologized for doubting him earlier, but Nu just shrugged it off, saying it was no biggie and he didn't hold grudges. Ines then introduced herself as the vice captain of the Clace Knight Corps, whose entire job was to keep the royal princess safe from, well, everything. She explained that since childhood, she'd been the princess's living shield, sworn to protect her, even if it meant she'd go out in a blaze of glory. Since Nu saving the princess also technically saved her life, she swore to support him with everything she had, completely pledging her loyalty to repay her debt of gratitude. Hearing all that, Nu immediately sensed too much drama coming from this royal family, so he just vaguely hummed in agreement, figuring it'd make her happy. However, Ines, ever the loyal knight, warned him not to be so casual with the king again, as it was super disrespectful. She made it clear she wouldn't be letting it slide next time. Nu introduced himself for convenience, then Ines politely took her leave. But before our cozy lead could even think about heading home, this Jub guy showed up, spear in hand, itching for a fight. He insisted Nu unleash his full power before he'd let him off the hook. Our guy Nu just couldn't wrap his head around what this dude was trying to drag him into. At this point, he just wanted to go home and nap, because he was utterly wiped out. And yet Rupert still dragged him into the training room, demanding a full-on duel. Word on the street was, this guy was a pretty big deal, a renowned warrior from the royal capital. Before the fight, Rupert, in his infinite wisdom, let Nu pick his own weapon, just to gauge his skill. Nu, ever the practical one, saw this as a golden opportunity to get some practice in, so he agreed to the guidance. Our hero casually picked up a literal wooden stick to face off against the capital's strongest spear wielder. The entire audience was already writing Nu's obituary, convinced he was about to get absolutely obliterated. But the moment Rupert unleashed his first devastating blow, Nu casually sidestepped it, and even the next few attacks couldn't land a single scratch. Nu, bless his heart, actually thought to himself, this guy's supposed to be strong, but he's moving like a snail. He must be holding back because he thinks I'm a newbie. So our clueless MC actually told Jub, no need to hold back, bro. Just unleash everything you've got. Hearing that, Jub decided to flip his serious mode switch, cranking up his attack speed to a level that almost made Nu pay attention. But no matter how fast Jub thought he was moving, Nu was still dodging his blows like they were in slow motion. Rupert started getting seriously ticked off, utterly bewildered why his unbeatable spear couldn't even graze Nu. He even tried some sneaky, unexpected feints, completely changing his attack trajectory, but to absolutely no avail. Our unbothered lead, still convinced Rupert was holding back, had to politely remind him to put a little more oomph into it. Jub was utterly mortified, wishing he could pull his pants over his head, so he decided to unleash his ultimate killing move, one that reportedly made the entire arena tremble. But before that deadly spear could even get close, Nu had already casually shifted to a different spot. Nu, deciding that particular move looked way too dangerous, graciously conceded the match. Meanwhile, Jubert's entire fan club had their jaws on the floor, absolutely stunned that someone had just casually dodged their master's ultimate technique. Clearly they thought Jubert is a genius. He can't possibly lose to some random country bumpkin like Nu. Hearing the word genius triggered a sudden flashback for Jubert. Back in the day, everyone in his village used to sing his praises, hailing him as a true spear genius. He defeated countless strong opponents, relentlessly honing his skills along the way. Eventually, Rupert started feeling that life in the kingdom was just too boring. Every single strong opponent he encountered got absolutely trashed. He never missed a beat. That is, until his village chief mentioned that the Glaze Kingdom was gearing up for a massive war with a neighboring country, recruiting powerful warriors for the campaign. So, the chief advised Rupert to make a trip back to the capital, hinting that he might find some real powerhouses there. On his journey, Rupert diligently wiped out hordes of monsters, and every time he heard a strong warrior had joined the army, he'd immediately challenge them to a duel. But, naturally, not a single soul was even remotely worthy of being Rupert's opponent. Even the giant labyrinth monster couldn't give him a decent challenge. Everything was just too weak. Nothing was worthy of this OP spear wielder's time. Sometime later, Rupert's master came to check in on our ridiculously overpowered guy. He noted that even after getting the Holy Spear title, Rupert looked anything but thrilled. Rupert admitted he was just bored stiff, unable to find a single worthy rival. Not even Ines could give him a challenge when they sparred. If only there were more strong people like his master around, right? His master cheered him up, saying someone even stronger might show up one day, someone who could finally humble our Holy Spear wielder. And now Rupert has met Nu, the guy who casually took down the labyrinth's gigantic boss monster. Plus, Nu's personality is super weird. He doesn't care about wealth or fame, staying completely unbothered even when facing the literal king. At first, Rupert thought Nu wouldn't be strong enough to take on that monster. But after their spar, his Holy Spear couldn't land a single hit. In the end, Rupert went all out, unleashing his absolute strongest ultimate technique. It was a lethal sound barrier-breaking strike meant to end any opponent instantly. But Nu just casually dodged it, leaving Rupert's mind completely blown. This was Rupert's first ever defeat in a one-on-one duel. What's even crazier is Nu then voluntarily accepted defeat, making Rupert think he was just trying to save his face in front of his subordinates. This level of humiliation was absolutely unbearable for our Holy Spear wielder. Meanwhile, Nu just casually walked off, sword in hand, already looking forward to their rematch with Rupert. It was only then that Rupert finally took a good look at the arena after their fight. For some reason, massive cracks had appeared all over the spots where Nu had been standing. It seems Nu was casually wielding unfathomable power, and finally, Rupert found life a whole lot more interesting. On his way home, Nu was still pondering that killing move his opponent had used. If he hadn't activated his physical enhancement technique and ninja-like footwork, he definitely would have kicked the bucket. So, next time they meet up, he figured he should thank his opponent for holding back so much. But since Nu is a complete space cadet, he couldn't even remember that blonde dude's name. And for a rematch, he knew he'd have to train even harder. The next day, Nu woke up bright and early to continue his ditch-cleaning duties. And wouldn't you know it, using the king's legendary sword to clean gutters got them absolutely spotless. Not a speck of dirt remained. The sword itself was still sparkling, not a single scratch on it. Ditch cleaning was now smooth sailing for Nu, while his previous porter duties had been put on hold, so our cozy lead, Nu, was getting seriously worried that he was running out of things to do. Naturally, Nu's next brilliant idea involved using his sword to row a boat, or maybe bake some cakes. But to bake a cake, you kinda need to make fire. And our boy could only make this tiny, mutated little flame, so he figured it probably wouldn't do much good. Just then, a literal princess showed up to give Nu her morning greetings. Remembering how Ines had told him not to get too friendly last time, Nu kept it brief, just asking why the princess was even here. Turns out, the princess actively sought him out because she wanted to become his personal maid. Soon, she'd be diligently taking care of Nu and conveniently learning all his secret techniques and knowledge while she was at it. And the princess promised she wouldn't bother or inconvenience Nu, just hoping he'd accept her. Upon hearing this, Nu immediately refused, claiming he had absolutely nothing to teach anyone. The princess heard that and instantly thought she was too incompetent for him to accept. So she started showing off all her magical achievements from school to impress him. She even promised to pay Nu extra just to get trained by him. She'd obey his every command without question, no arguments. And when Nu still refused, the princess got so sad she literally burst into tears. To finally get him to accept her, the princess decided to show off a little bit of her own power. First up was a super flashy ice-fire magic combo, one of the strongest ultimate techniques in her arsenal. Next, she showed off a simple knife technique that could fell an ancient tree with ease. This was a secret skill from the rogue class, not something just anyone could learn. And finally, a divine slash, completely splitting the tree behind Nu straight in half. According to the princess, this was a holy tier swordsman skill, specifically designed to take down immortal monsters. After showing off all her incredible skills, the princess probably thought Nu would be super impressed. However, Nu actually felt kinda insecure, seeing the princess wield all these awesome ultimate techniques, while he didn't know a single attack skill. But even with all that, the princess was still absolutely determined to become his student, forcing Nu to tell her the truth and explain that he could only make tiny little flames like this. On her way back, the princess remembered a story her instructors often told her. It was a legend about a young boy who had absolutely no innate talent whatsoever. At first, the princess didn't even bother believing the story, because this talentless boy was basically a superhero. He had completed all 6 brutal training courses when he was only 12 years old. Keep in mind, those same training courses could completely exhaust even the strongest warriors in just 3 days. It wasn't until the princess met Nu that she truly believed someone that powerful could actually exist. Earlier, the mage Oaken had demonstrated a simple fire magic spell for the princess. With diligent practice, that flame could become slightly larger than it was initially. And despite practicing a ton, she could only ever create a flame the size of her fingertip. Yet Nu could whip up a flame several times bigger than what Professor Oaken could ever dream of. Nu even casually mentioned his other elemental powers were just as ridiculously overtuned. This just proved Nu's power defied all known regulations, so the princess showing off her magic in front of him was basically trying to teach a pro gamer how to press W. Not to mention Nu had also casually blasted away that monster's axe last time, but he never flexed his power, just subtly helped everyone out. The princess would eventually have to lead the country alongside her brother, so she absolutely had to learn from Nu to become stronger. So that night, she went looking for Nu again, ready to officially declare him her master. Seeing his hesitation, the princess begged to follow him around like a lost puppy to learn his secret, because she firmly believed Nu's ridiculously overpowered strength was exactly what the royal family needed to pursue. Meanwhile, Nu was just speechless, wondering how he accidentally became a full-blown sensei overnight. Prince Ren was still fuming that his father had just handed over the black sword to Nu. Back in the day, the king, along with 6 legendary companions, had conquered the deepest, most nightmare-inducing floors of the labyrinth. And the black sword was the labyrinth's ultimate treasure, something he practically fought tooth and nail to bring back. The blade itself was forged from an absurdly durable, unknown material that no one had ever encountered before. No matter what kind of apocalypse-level attack you threw at it, the sword wouldn't even get a tiny scratch. Which is why everyone eventually christened it the indestructible blade. And yet, the king just shrugged it off as some rusty old sword and gifted it to some random guy he'd barely met. Ren knew his father still felt the kingdom was in some serious unspoken danger. Maybe giving Nu the sword was his dad's ultimate power move, a risky bet on Nu's hidden strength. After all, Nu had single-handedly taken down that legendary bull-headed monster and saved the princess's life, so the king probably saw him as the ultimate trump card for the coming war. Meanwhile, Nu and Ren were cooking up breakfast for the new workday, and the princess wouldn't stop calling Nu master, making him blush a deep, embarrassing shade of red. But Nu was practically helpless because the princess was now his permanent shadow, following him everywhere he went. No matter how much he tried to reason with her, she wouldn't listen, even demanding to tag along on all his quests. After breakfast, the two dropped by the guild, and the guild master was absolutely flabbergasted that Nu was casually strolling in with such an important figure this time. Just by looking at the princess's starry-eyed expression, the guild master immediately assumed Nu had somehow charmed his way into her heart. But since guild law explicitly forbade prying into personal affairs, he decided to just nod wisely and not ask any questions. Nu told them he needed a quest that was perfectly suited for both of them to tackle together. Since Ren was a high-ranking adventurer, the guild master immediately suggested a quest to subjugate some green goblins. The young man immediately perked up and got super enthusiastic the moment he heard green goblins. After all, these were the perfect monsters to test an adventurer's skills. But Nu, in his humble way, felt it was absolutely embarrassing for a low-rank guy like him to have to rely on Ren's fancy title. Even the guild master chimed in, implying that if Nu tagged along with Ren, he'd just be a complete dead weight. Nu, feeling utterly humiliated and flustered after hearing that, instantly turned to the princess for help. Of course, she already considered Nu her supreme master, so whatever he wanted, she'd pretty much bend over backwards to make it happen. So our unbothered country boy confidently grabbed his sword and marched off to slaughter the green goblins, leaving the other two absolutely bug-eyed with shock. But first, the guildmaster had to point Nu towards the monster hunting ground, also reminding him to grab a monster's ear as proof for the reward money. He also gave Nu the standard "be careful, this quest isn't safe" spiel. After leaving the guild hall, the two immediately headed for the city gate. Since this was her first quest with her master, Ren was super hyped, and the two quickly made their way towards the magical beast forest right outside town. Nu noticed this forest was full of huge trees, completely different from any he'd seen before, so he asked Ren what the dwarf monsters living here looked like. According to the princess, this forest had a completely unique ecosystem compared to other places. The normal monsters here usually just munched on wild fruits and small animals, but when food ran low, they'd swarm down to villages to hunt humans. That's why veteran adventurers occasionally had to go on hunting trips to keep their numbers in check. But if they hunted too much, it would mess with the forest's ecological balance, so humans weren't allowed to completely eradicate these monsters. Plus, the forest also held tons of rare flora and fauna not found anywhere else, making it a popular training ground for rookie adventurers, and a convenient way to earn some extra cash. Nu could only marvel at her vast knowledge, making him wonder even more why Ren was so dead set on following him around. As they delved deeper into the forest, it grew gloomier and gloomier. Apparently, the ancient colossal trees here were so dense that sunlight couldn't even reach the ground. Perfect for monsters to gather for their nefarious monster meetings. But when the princess used her sensing magic, she didn't pick up any dwarf monsters nearby. There was, however, a strong reading from another type of monster very close ahead, so the two decided to check out what it looked like. But by the time they reached the spot, the monster's presence had completely vanished. Nu, ever the optimist, figured it was probably just an old monster that finally keeled over and died. Still, the air around them was thick with danger, making him stay on guard. Just then, in the distance, they spotted a monster corpse, or rather, just the bottom half of one. The princess immediately used her invisibility-dispelling magic and discovered a giant dwarf monster that had just finished feasting on its own kind. Nu used to think these dwarf monsters were just trash-tier weaklings, but seeing this behemoth up close, he realized just how terrifyingly massive it was. This thing even knew how to fight with entire tree trunks, and just one roar was enough to make the surrounding space tremble. Meanwhile, the princess next to him was completely frozen, probably moments away from wetting her royal pants. As Ren knew it, this was an emperor dwarf monster, a species classified as a Calamity-level threat, specifically a monster created by human research using forbidden magic. Not to mention, it had just feasted on a bunch of its kin to boost its own power. Nu, however, just shrugged it off as a common monster, telling her there was nothing to be afraid of. Hearing that, Ren instantly thought her master was... No wonder our guy was pretty stoked when he got the mission to subjugate it. He probably already knew this forest had a monster and just came to humble it. Which is why Ren felt super confident with our master beside her, and the two decided to tag team this giant monster. The monster came charging at Nu with 2 tree trunks, but he expertly parried them with his greatsword, then pulled out a flawless counterattack to disarm its makeshift weapons. The monster tried to overwhelm Nu, but it was just like trying to push a mountain. But as soon as it lost its balance, Ren seized the chance to unleash her windblade magic. Yet the monster cleverly moved to dodge every single spell she threw. Then it hurled a tree trunk straight at Ren, so Nu immediately dashed forward and knocked it away. Not stopping there, the monster kept chucking trees at Nu, but since he'd been practicing his counterattacks for like 10 years, he just batted every single one back. The only problem was, the more he fought, the faster Nu seemed to tire, while the monster, with its magic stone, just kept going and going. So Ren figured if they could just yank that magic stone from its forehead, it would definitely weaken. At this point, the monster was just continuously pelting Nu with trees. With that many trees, he was worried he wouldn't be able to counter all of them. Seeing this, Ren immediately unleashed a high-level wind spell, blowing away all of the monster's attacks along with everything else in the vicinity. The monster was pretty banged up, but it healed super fast, confirming her belief that the magic stone was its unlimited power source. If they kept fighting like this, Nu and Ren would definitely run out of steam soon, so he had to figure out a way to get that magic stone out. He then asked Ren to unleash that same wind spell on his back. Ren warned him that spell could literally shatter castle walls, and anyone hit by it would be instantly vaporized. But Nu assured her he'd brace himself with his sword, telling her not to worry. If he could just get enough speed, he'd close the distance to the monster. So Ren fired the wind spell straight into Nu's back, sending him flying forward with his eyes practically bugging out, making Nu instantly use his physical enhancement magic, combined with some ninja-like footwork, to keep his balance. And as he got close to the monster, Nu swung his sword, landing a perfect hit on the magic stone, making it pop right out. After losing its magic stone, the monster went absolutely berserk. Princess Ren, meanwhile, happily picked up the stone to show Nu, who then asked her to finish off the monster quickly to spare it any more pain. So, with a cool stride, she conjured a massive flame that engulfed the monster, making it collapse after just a few seconds. After all that hard work, the two of them finally managed to defeat this giant monster. Nu even sighed, apologizing to the monster, and decided maybe he shouldn't take any more subjugation quests like this again. Because, he felt he needed way more training to deal with monsters this strong. What a humble king. Meanwhile, Crown Prince Rei quickly got news about the Emperor monster and how it possessed a magic stone of incredibly high purity. It was hard to imagine how powerful this monster must have been when it was alive. However, Nu and the princess had managed to defeat it with only minor injuries. According to his subordinate's report, this magic stone was also known as the Devil's Heart, belonging to the Emra Empire, and the monster had been enchanted with high-level stealth magic to lie in ambush in the forest. Upon hearing this, the Crown Prince couldn't understand how they'd transported the monster there, because if they'd used summoning magic, he would have definitely sensed it. His subordinate also reported that the number of dwarf monsters in the forest was severely decreasing, and the Adventurers Guild was in charge of investigating this. In addition, they had gathered a ton of reports about strange phenomena over the past 3 months for Ren. Nu, along with Rain, returned to the guild hall to report on their mission. The guildmaster was absolutely flabbergasted, finding it impossible to believe that the F-rank nobody he once was had actually taken down a monster. Nu said it was all thanks to Ren that he managed to take it down. If it weren't for her, he'd probably be pushing up daisies in that forest by now. But the princess didn't take all the credit, saying she only helped him from the sidelines. Nu felt that his first monster hunt with Ren was truly a monumental memory in his life. Moreover, this was the first time he'd seen a monster with a gem on its forehead. After hearing that, the guildmaster thought this was a rare specimen and wanted Nu to provide proof. Turns out, the guildmaster had reminded him to bring back the monster's ear as proof to get the reward money. However, our resident gourmet waifu had already barbecued that monster thoroughly, so its ear was burnt to a crisp. Rain's report stated that there were often suspicious sounds at night. The number of stray cats and dogs was unusually increasing, and a few men had gone missing after heading out. Ren found these phenomena eerily similar to those in the monster forest, and feared that enemies had infiltrated the Glace Kingdom, so he ordered many mages along with the 6 holy knights to be summoned to deal with it. Ren believed that all these tricks originated from the demonic empire. Simply coveting the labyrinth's resources, they were willing to throw the entire kingdom into chaos. And if they didn't act, the kingdom would soon be destroyed by them. Meanwhile, Ren's little sister was still comfortably eating with her master, without a care in the world. Turns out the guildmaster still paid the fee for Nu's monster hunt. Even though his family was dirt poor, he still had to treat his disciple to a full meal first. He just didn't know how long this princess would keep tagging along with him. And after eating, she planned to visit her home tonight. Seeing that, Nu immediately thanked Ren for her help, saying it was thanks to her assistance that the hunt was successful. Right at that moment, Ren appeared down in the street. With a few words for his little sister and Nu, he wanted them both to head out for another city tomorrow morning. After hearing that, Nu thought the prince was giving him a glorified errand quest, but Ren only said he would pay Nu for his efforts, without specifying what the mission was. The next morning Nu, along with Ren, set off for the new city. Even though the mission wasn't clear, the guildmaster still advised him to accept because the pay was quite high. Besides, Nu had never ridden a carriage before, so he wanted to try it out just once. Not to mention, getting to travel such a long distance by carriage like this was truly living like a king. On the way, he felt very excited by the vast wheat fields, but the princess seemed pensive and not happy at all. Turns out she felt guilty towards Nu because Ren had practically strong-armed him into this mission. But he said he accepted because he wanted to repay Ren for that whole monster-slaying incident yesterday. The crown prince briefly laid out the itinerary. First, they'd hit up a mountain city and chill there for a bit. If things didn't get too spicy, they'd then cross the mountains to reach the so-called Divine Emra Empire. The crown prince even sugarcoated it as a pleasure trip, which obviously made Nu pretty stoked. But with Ines as their personal bodyguard, this pleasure trip suddenly felt a lot less safe. Turns out, Ines had actually gotten a top-secret order from Rain. He mentioned that the royal capital Clay was about to get hit by an unprecedented disaster. And if the capital ended up in ruins, she was to escort the princess to the Emra Empire for exile. Ren had really stressed just how critical this mission was. Ines absolutely had to get the princess to safety, no matter what. Since it was a secret order, she hadn't breathed a word of it to the other two. Instead, she just said it was a vacation and her job was to protect Nu and the princess. Nu, hearing all this, casually reminded Ines not to sweat it, seeing as he was basically the fastest guy around. But Ines was super confident she had the strength to protect everyone, thanks to her ultimate guardian shield technique. No sooner had she spoken than she conjured a magical light shield, leaving Nu utterly dumbfounded. She then instructed that if things went sideways, all they had to do was hide behind her shield for absolute safety. At this point, Nu suddenly remembered that spear-wielding hotshot Rupert. Word on the street was Rupert could make mincemeat out of a dragon, and since Ines was apparently on his level, she had to be way stronger than Nu. After all, he could only barely take down a trash-tier goblin. Seeing Ines's power, Nu immediately showered her with compliments, calling her a true genius. Hearing that, Ines was suddenly transported back to her past, remembering the time she was adopted by an orphanage. Back then, she realized she harbored strange powers that accidentally hurt her classmates. Right after, she went to the Holy Knights, asking them to help her understand what was going on. And when they saw the brilliant light radiating from her hand, Oaken declared it a true divine blessing. This particular blessing was historically rare, meaning very few people ever possessed it. With this power, Ines could transform into a blade capable of severing anything, or a shield that could block all. To help her master this power, the Shield Saint of the Stone Tribe adopted her and put her through rigorous training. After a long period of training with the Stone Tribe, Ines finally learned to harness her divine blessing. She could effortlessly conjure a shield strong enough to stop a massive boulder. However, she was still haunted by her childhood, constantly fearing her power would harm others. So, Ines had always kept her distance from people, trying not to accidentally hurt them. It wasn't until she met Nu that she realized he was the young man her adoptive father. Back in the day, Ines and Ren's squad had a real tough time battling a whole horde of ferocious monsters. Their numbers were just too overwhelming, and the royal capital's forces couldn't even put up a fight. It was a seriously desperate situation. Ren himself was practically begging for Nu to be there, fighting alongside him. Ines, after hearing all this, got super curious. Like, who even is this new guy that her dad trusts him so much? She even started feeling a little jealous of him, a literal stranger she'd never even laid eyes on. And now, actually being around Nu, her jealousy just shot through the roof, especially since our boy was basically getting the royal treatment from King Ji himself. But Ines had to shove all those petty feelings away and actually focus on her real job, protecting the princess. Meanwhile, as they were making their way, Nu, with his keen farming eye, noticed something seriously weird with the wheat field. Like something had just casually carved a path straight through it. The princess, however, spotted the wheat plants wilting from some sketchy black smoke. So, like a boss, she instantly cast a manifestation spell over the field, completely blowing the monster's stealth cover. Back at the capital, the king and crown prince got the urgent memo. Monsters were literally everywhere. The crown prince immediately ordered even more divisions to roll out. Their mission: smack down the monsters and get the heck out of Dodge for all the civilians. But the king had a sudden, unwelcome flashback to the last time the demon empire of Doritos threw out a threat. And wouldn't you know it, Doritos was making good on their threats, just as predicted. Ren, ever the diligent crown prince, told his dad he'd already deployed the legendary 6 holy knights. But even they had to split up into smaller teams because the monster population was just bonkers. Right now, every single team was in an all-out struggle, desperately trying to keep the monster tide from swarming the royal capital. Luckily, they were still mostly holding the line. No team had been completely wiped out yet, but they were all scattered, making the whole situation super tricky. Ren just prayed that Nu and his group would somehow make it to safety soon. Meanwhile, this random kid was literally leading a magic beast straight toward the royal capital. What a menace. But then, Rain used a manifestation spell to completely shatter its stealth. The beast, utterly bewildered, immediately went berserk and attacked the very kid who was leading it. Ines instantly recognized it. A freaking Black Death dragon. You know, just your average extremely dangerous magic beast type of creature. But she didn't even flinch, grabbing her sword and charging straight into the field to save the idiot kid. That kid thought he was a goner, no doubt. But, like clockwork, our farming king Nu just happened to arrive right on time. Wielding a greatsword, our boy Nu was already mid-solo battle, like a casual 500 rounds with the beast, and neither side had even broken a sweat yet. Absolute legend. Meanwhile, Ines was busy spilling the tea to the princess. That very kid was the one who brought the magic beast here in the first place. Hearing that, Ren suddenly remembered a story his elder brother had told him back in the day. Apparently, demonkind are a race that can literally mind control magic beasts. Which is why humans have always seen demonkind as, absolutely repulsive creatures. 200 years ago, they literally sixed magic beasts on the Michara kingdom, almost wiping that entire nation off the map. Even though humans tried their best to exterminate every last demonkin, some descendants inevitably survived. So, yeah, it was pretty much guaranteed that demonkind would come back with a burning, intense hatred for humanity. And look at that, here we are again. A demonkin, casually leading a magic beast right towards the royal capital. Ines speculated that maybe the princess's manifestation spell startled the kid, which then made him lose control of the magic beast. Classic rookie mistake. Honestly, she probably thought it would have been better to just let the magic beast handle the problem itself. But Nu, our benevolent, accidentally OP farmer, still rushed in to save the kid. Ines just could not compute that level of idiocy. Seeing her master struggling against the magic beast, Ren wanted to rush in and lend a hand. But Ines stopped her, knowing that Nu was pretty much a goner at this point. Meanwhile, Nu still thought this was just some slow, harmless frog, not a terrifying magic beast. He figured he could handle it just fine, since even the goblin from last time was way stronger, and he was doing okay until the 2 girls showed up. Suddenly, the frog gathered energy and launched itself straight at Nu. Knowing he'd still get hit if he dodged, Nu decided to just slash right through the attack. But surprise that frog's attack was laced with some deadly venom, making Nu cough up literal blue blood. That's precisely why Ines stopped the princess from getting any closer. Otherwise, she would have kicked the bucket right alongside him. Right then, Nu's head was spinning, and he couldn't even control his own body anymore. And it turns out Ines had actually tried to warn him earlier that this was a poisonous toad, not just some garden-variety frog. But our boy was too dense to realize, so now he was critically poisoned. According to Ines, this black death dragon always brought certain doom to any creature it touched. And seeing Princess Ren still intent on saving Nu, Ines immediately manifested a shield to stop her, because protecting the princess was her absolute top priority. Now, just inhaling a tiny bit of that black gas meant instant death for anyone, so Ines decided she'd stay and hold off the magic beast, buying the princess time to run to safety. Just then, the magic beast blasted a wave of black gas at Ines, so she frantically urged the princess to get out of there. But instead, Princess Ren stayed, using her purification magic to try and support Ines. The only problem was the purification speed was agonizingly slow, causing the surrounding animals to start dropping dead one by one. Suddenly, Ines noticed the amount of toxic smoke from the magic beast had significantly dwindled. It turned out that even though Nu was poisoned to death's door, he was still enthusiastically swinging his sword to prevent the beast from attacking, making Ines finally understand why her father trusted him so much. Sure enough, Nu's actions weren't foolish at all. He was willing to lay down his life to protect others. That was the very ideal Ines had secretly aspired to for a long, long time. The only problem was Nu was now so severely poisoned that no doctor could save him, and after delivering one final slash, he seemed to completely run out of steam and collapsed. Seeing this, the frog didn't even bother fighting Nu anymore, but our unbothered lead still believed he had plenty of fight left in him. There was no way he'd lose that easily. In the past, young Rollo and his fellow Demonkin were captured by other nations and branded as cursed children for their ability to manipulate magic beasts, leading humans to treat them no better than lower animals. They also shamelessly exploited these children's magic beast manipulation abilities for their war efforts. Rollo wasn't just treated cruelly, he was constantly beaten and physically abused. Just for daring to stare at a jailer, Rollo got kicked so hard he was sent flying. Afterward, that same jailer starved Rollo for 3 days, only allowing him water to stay alive. He even paraded Rollo through the streets, letting the public mob and curse at him. Besides his magic beast manipulation ability, Rollo could also read people's thoughts. With such cursed powers for a Demonkin, humans were never going to set him free. Despite the constant beatings, Rollo never fought back. All he could do was hope that one day he would escape this wretched prison. Until one day, this warden-grade villain pointed at a gnarly magic beast and told Rollo that if he could just handle it, the demon tribe would finally be recognized as, somewhat useful. He even promised to start treating Rollo's kin with some semblance of decency and stop beating them up. How generous. But if Rollo dared to defy him, the demon tribe would go right back to their hellish prison life. Classic villain move. Rollo, bless his trusting heart, actually believed this guy. So, he took control of the giant frog monster and set off towards the capital of Glace. But mid-journey, some random spellslinger named Ren decided to be a party pooper, casting a revelation spell that forced Rollo and his frog beast to revert to their original forms. This sudden magic freaked Rollo out so much he lost control of the beast, and the giant frog immediately spun around to attack him. Uh-oh. Rollo knew exactly what failure here meant. His entire demon family would go back to getting relentlessly clobbered. No pressure. But with the frog completely out of his control, Rollo pretty much resigned himself to the absolute worst. And if he did get reincarnated after this mess, he just hoped for a chill next life where he'd actually be treated like a person. Maybe even get to help people, and perhaps just once, enjoy a genuinely delicious meal. Dream big, Rollo. However, just as things looked bleak, our boy Nu popped up, casually blocking the giant frog's monstrous claw. Talk about a clutch entrance. Then he started using parries, whatever that is, to relentlessly counter the frog's attacks. Get him, Nu? Rollo, watching from the sidelines, was completely bewildered why a human was out here risking it all to protect him. This absolute legend even sliced away the frog's corrosive poison spray, not even thinking about bailing. Even though he was heavily poisoned himself, Nu just slapped on some simple healing magic, prioritizing Rollo's safety over his own. What a guy. But the moment Rollo was out of harm's way, Nu totally buckled from the sheer toxicity of that poison. And yet, like the true hero he is, he still managed to get back up, enthusiastically slicing off the frog's claws. Absolute madman. Finally, the frog got in one last cheap shot, blasting a massive dose of poison directly into Nu's face. Then it followed up with a nasty hit that sent him sprawling, completely out of commission. Or so it seemed. But plot twist. The poisonous blood inside Nu stopped flowing, and he just knew he had enough juice left to keep the party going. He wasn't about to lose this easily. So, how did Nu get this absurdly broken? Flashback time. It all started when he came home after 3 months of training, and on one trip to forage on the mountain, he picked some really weird-looking veggies. Among his haul was this peculiar clump of bright red plants he'd genuinely never encountered before. But our fearless, unbothered lead just shrugged, dumped it all into a pot, and started cooking, figuring the worst that could happen was a little tummy ache. Plot twist! He barely even started eating when Nu suddenly began violently coughing up blood. Yikes! Turns out that weird-looking veggie was actually a super toxic deadly poison, not dinner. Whoops. Nu had to spam healing magic all night long just to keep himself from becoming worm food. Talk about a bad food review. The cool, refreshing stream water was what finally jolted him awake after a truly uncomfortable night. A little while later, Nu rummaged around for the botany book his parents had left him. Maybe he should have read it before cooking. And wouldn't you know it, the book did have an entry for that exact plant, a super toxic species ominously named the dragon-slaying ear. Nu's own mother had specifically warned him never to eat it. Our boy just conveniently forgot that little detail. So naturally, Nu's body became super weak. He couldn't even manage his daily training anymore. However, just a few days later, Nu realized something. Our boy Nu, fueled by an insatiable hunger, had no choice but to venture into the mountains for a snack. But this time, not even a mountain of gold could convince Nu to try that dragon-eradicating ear plant again. Suddenly, a super poisonous snake decided to casually bite Nu's backside, leaving him feeling spleased. While he did casually punch the snake into oblivion, the poison still managed to knock Nu out cold. But plot twist! Just a few minutes later, Nu woke up like nothing happened, and decided to turn the super poisonous snake into the most delicious dinner he'd ever had. The next day, our unbothered farming king decided to casually test the snake's venom again, just to see what his body could do. And sure enough, his body had already developed top-tier poison resistance. No biggie. From then on, Nu decided his new hobby was foraging for the most venomous ingredients in the world, purely for culinary purposes. He even went back for the dragon-eradicating ear, only to eat it with rice and still faceplant right after. Some things are just too good to be true, I guess. He didn't gain any new skills from it, but hey, that exotic deadly cuisine was undeniably delicious, which naturally led him to think this giant frog meat, probably super tasty too. Meanwhile, two girls were fretting over Nu, while Nu himself was more worried about the little kid behind him. As long as that kid didn't get poisoned by whatever this frog was, Nu was good to go. Wielding his trusty sword, Nu then proceeded to spar for another 500 rounds with the giant frog. Casual stuff. Our boy skillfully lopped off all the frog's claws, then followed up with a swing so powerful it almost knocked the giant beast flat on its back. Unable to use its limbs, the frog gathered all its remaining energy for one final desperate anime-level attack. Nu, recognizing this as the endgame, didn't even let it get a hit in, impaling it perfectly through the throat with his sword, causing the whole monster to explode. Classic. Everyone nearby just stood there, mouths agape, completely shell-shocked by the display. Nu, of course, was already wondering if this frog meat was any good. But first, he figured he should check on the kid. Noticing Rollo looked a little green, Nu asked Ren to keep an eye on him. When Nu finally got around to asking, Rollo explained he was actually trying to guide the giant frog to the city. Naturally, Nu assumed Rollo was taking the frog to be sold for meat, and that his stealth magic was just to make sure no one else stole his precious merchandise. Nu even started imagining Rollo owned a whole farm of giant frogs, just waiting for them to fatten up for market. So Nu hurriedly apologized, promising to earn enough money to compensate Rollo for accidentally turning his prize frog into a protein shake. Rollo, however, clarified that it was just a regular magical beast, so no compensation was needed. He then revealed his true talent, the ability to control magical beasts, which was how he'd been leading it. Nu was genuinely impressed by this revelation. Who knew such a tiny kid could wield such an amazing skill? But Rollo casually added that he was from the demon race, so this beast-taming ability was just something he was born with. No biggie. Nu immediately connected the dots, thinking, so the demon race can control animals. Man, I wish I had that power. Imagine getting all those wild beasts to do my farm work. Even rounding up wild dogs to be farm pets would be an absolute blast, he figured. Rollo mentioned that many people feared his power, but Nu just thought those people were weird and didn't understand what they were missing out on. He then advised Rollo not to listen to any haters, because having such a useful ability, one that even Nu coveted, was definitely something to be proud of. Hearing this, Rollo was deeply moved, as he had been cursed by everyone since birth. Nobody had ever recognized Rollo as useful. They only ever used him as a war tool. Meanwhile, Nu felt this kid was genuinely very different from him. Since birth, he was just a talentless scrub, possessing no special abilities whatsoever. Yet this boy was blessed with a very strong power from heaven, and Nu couldn't understand why he undervalued himself so much. Maybe Rollo was still too young, and his time to shine just hadn't come yet. So Nu patted Rollo's head, encouraging him that one day he would do many useful things and earn recognition from others. Ren and Ines also rushed over to check on Nu, and Ren tried to use healing magic on her master, but he just said his body had poison immunity, so he was fine. Hearing this, both girls were astonished, as the demon beast's poison was incredibly potent. It was the ultimate poison, capable of eroding even the ground, meaning any normal person would instantly kick the bucket. Yet Nu had taken a direct hit from the poison and was still chilling like nothing happened. Looking at Nu's body, Ren suddenly remembered the power that the Holy Knight Sen possessed. He was the one who had trained both his body and soul like a saint, thereby able to cleanse all toxins. and simultaneously heal all wounds. But to reach that level of mastery, Sen had to undergo 40 years of rigorous training. The fact that Master Nu, still so young, had awakened that power was truly unbelievable. Casually, Nu then asked Ren to examine Rollo's body to see if the kid was injured. But Ren took one look at Rollo's appearance and immediately knew he was from the demon tribe. She couldn't understand why her master still wanted her to save Rollo. Nu even wanted to put Rollo in the carriage to come along with everyone. Ren refused, saying this boy was a dangerous demonkin with the ability to control demon beasts. But Nu was feeling guilty because he had struck down Rollo's frog. Hearing that, everyone was utterly shocked. Turns out, Nu just considered the black demon dragon to be nothing more than a common frog. Rollo then told everyone about his circumstances. He had followed orders to lead demon beasts to the city, and all demonkin like him were raised solely for that purpose. Seeing the fear in Rollo's eyes, Enos realized the boy was a slave. Other nations exploited these young slaves as mere tools of war. Rollo also explained that his eyes were covered on the way, so he couldn't remember where the city he used to live in was anymore. After hearing Rollo's story, Nu asked everyone to help the boy. Ren, meanwhile, remembered the king's words about trusting your own eyes and not being swayed by rumors. Yet, when she met Rollo, she had immediately assumed he belonged to some evil race. Now Ren only saw Rollo as a pitiful skinny kid. Since he had nowhere else to go, the princess asked Ines if Rollo could tag along with the group. Ines was a little hesitant though, because the Micha nation they were headed to had a serious beef with the demon race. If they brought Rollo along, Micha might see them as enemies and attack on sight. But before anyone could figure out a plan for the kid, an assassin conveniently decided to make a dramatic entrance. Nu, being Nu, immediately assumed this shirtless dude was the one who hired Rollo for the frog mission, so he promptly apologized for eating the guy's frog. The assassin just stood there, utterly dumbfounded, wondering what the heck Nu was even apologizing for. He then clarified that he was actually here to bring Rollo back to the kingdom. But the moment those words left his mouth, he immediately lunged at Rollo, forcing Nu to pull out a counterattack to stop him. According to this assassin, someone had paid him big bucks to permanently retire Rollo. Just bring back the body, and a hefty reward would be his. Arden's protagonist, Nu, barely registered what he was hearing, but one thing was clear: no one harms Rollo on his watch. He continuously parried and countered, effortlessly deflecting the assassin's lightning-fast slashes. The moment the assassin tried to switch targets to Rollo, Nu, without missing a beat, casually shattered his sword. Both Nu and the assassin were moving at speeds the princess couldn't even process. Undeterred, the assassin pulled out a wicked-looking broadsword, deciding to take Nu's head first. Because he knew that as long as Nu was standing, Rollo was completely untouchable. This time, he unleashed an incredibly powerful thrust, sending both Nu and Rollo flying back. But Nu, always quick on the draw, used a perfectly timed counter that once again shattered the assassin's weapon. After a few more exchanges, the assassin realized Nu was no ordinary pushover. He ramped up his speed significantly, forcing Nu to actually put in some effort to defend. Against this relentless barrage of attacks, even Nu started to worry he might eventually tire out. Meanwhile, Ines had to pull out a shield to protect Ren from the sheer shockwaves radiating from the battle. At the same time, she informed the princess that this assassin went by the chilling moniker, the Death Man. He was none other than Dan, a former S-rank adventurer. Ines had actually come across records of a certain infamous incident Dan was responsible for. When Ines asked the 6 Holy Knights about him, they told her Dan had achieved S-rank adventurer status at an incredibly young age. However, he later turned into an extremely dangerous and highly sought-after wanted criminal. Ren, seeing this as an opportunity, immediately asked his master if he could fight him and see what the fuss was about. He couldn't understand why the 6 Holy Knights were so terrified of Dan, or just how powerful this guy really was. But they all sternly advised Ren not to be delusional, warning him that fighting Dan would only lead to a meaningless death. So Master Orin decided to enlighten Ren by recounting some of Dan's greatest achievements. From a young age, he had already mastered the incredibly complex alchemy of the dwarf tribes. And by the tender age of 13, he had already... Turns out, this dude's reputation and raw power had already reached every kingdom in the neighborhood. Before anyone knew it, Dan had already casually reached the absolute apex of the adventurer hierarchy. He even stacked up a whole lot of contributions to the Adventurers Guild. Like that one time he single-handedly went and wiped out a literal disaster-level monster. Casual, right? But, our boy wasn't exactly using his immense talents for all the right things. Ines, clearly sensing something was off, immediately went to reevaluate Dan's entire case file. Turns out he once massacred 36 people from a merchant family, leaving the Adventurers Guild utterly stumped on how to even handle him. The legendary 6 Holy Knights even noted that Dan pretty much played for whichever team paid him the most, completely ignoring good or evil. Ines then stumbled upon Dan's latest stunt. He was hired to wipe an entire country off the map, and naturally he delivered. Our unbothered mercenary king single-handedly annihilated that country's entire army and royal family, all in one casual night. The aftermath he left behind looked less like a battle and more like a goblin nest after an aggressive pest control session. Naturally, a lot of adventurers later tried their luck challenging Dan, lured by the massive bounty on his head. But, surprise, surprise, they all ended up as fertilizer. Turns out nobody was even close to his league. Plot twist, though, Nu had just trashed a good chunk of Dan's weapon arsenal, and Dan was quick to flex about how rare his collection was. Nu, completely unbothered, instantly promised to compensate him for everything right after the fight. Dan, hearing this bold claim, basically thought Nu was high on something. Even Nu's ridiculously weird greatsword was throwing Dan off, but he just couldn't wrap his head around it. But he didn't have time for existential questions, so he decided to whip out his ultimate killing move and take Nu out ASAP. Right after, he tossed his cross sword into the air, and it instantly multiplied into hundreds of metal blades, all screaming towards Nu. Ines knew these were basically Dan's signature mass-produced weapons, so destroying a few wouldn't even dent his supply. But as soon as Dan unleashed his sword storm, Nu was already there, casually stacking up his own counter moves. The sheer volume of blades was too much, though, so Nu had to physically shield Rollo with his own body to make sure the kid didn't get a scratch. Meanwhile, Ines knew perfectly well that if she didn't jump into action, both Nu and Rollo were basically toast. Problem was, her top priority mission was literally just to protect the princess and nobody else. So Ines, ever the good soldier, had to formally ask the princess for permission to actually help them. Nu was still putting in serious work, struggling against Dan's relentless sword rain. Right on cue, Ines deployed her holy shield, not for defense, but to interrupt Dan's attack mid-flow. And because she's awesome, she simultaneously conjured a massive shield to protect both Nu and Rollo. Thanks to Ines' shiny new shield, Dan's swordpocalypse couldn't even touch Nu anymore. Bonus points. Ines could also launch that shield forward like a giant holy frisbee to attack. But Dan's speed was just ridiculously broken, so Ines couldn't land a single hit. Ines, ever the strategist, realized this wasn't getting them anywhere, so she switched to full defense mode, giving Nu space to figure out how to humble Dan. After a brief brain session, Nu decided to use the fangs of a poisonous frog as a weapon, confidently telling Ines that this would be the ultimate counter to Dan's metal blades. First up, Nu casually flexed his physical enhancement, crushing the frog fangs into a handful of jagged stones. Our hero just casually asked Ines to drop the shield so he could start throwing rocks. And wouldn't you know it, this bully's fancy iron sword started shattering like cheap glass from Nu's rock slinging. Once he ran out of shiny blades to throw, this wannabe villain tried a cheap shot, circling around Ines to finish her off. But our chill hero, Nu, wasn't having any of that. He casually intercepted, shattering this guy's last resort blade. Seriously though, how does Nu just always land a hit on this dude? It's like the universe is conspiring to make him look good. This guy tried another cheap shot, aiming for Rollo, but nope, Nu's sword was just there again, deflecting it all. Our humble protagonist claimed he was just sensing the guy's position, but come on, nobody buys that he's that accurate with just feelings. The villain, out of literally anything to fight with, declared he'd generously spare Rollo's life, as if he had a choice, and then casually dropped a hint about a huge festival coming up in the capital, because apparently, even villains love giving out plot hooks. With that, this walking L magnet turned around and dramatically walked away from Nu's crew. But Nu's utterly clueless and unbothered face just made the guy rage quit. He ranted that Nu was the strongest country bumpkin he'd ever had the misfortune of fighting. Our cozy lead, Nu, meanwhile, had a feeling this dude was about to pull another dirty trick. And just like that, the high and mighty general tried to use a random blade from the ground for one last, desperate attack on Nu. Finally realizing he couldn't even scratch our plot armor farming king, the clown retreated in a puff of edgy black smoke. The princess was curious about this festival, and Nu, being Nu, was mildly intrigued, so he just casually invited the whole gang to check out the capital. Rollo, bless his cotton socks, suddenly realized 3 of Nu's companions were from the capital and panicked, begging them not to go back right now. Apparently, he'd overheard the Demon Empire's mages planning to unleash their strongest beast on the capital. The princess, seeing the gravity of the situation, was instantly ready to head back to the capital. But Ines, our loyal knight-turned-bodyguard, couldn't allow it, as her orders were to keep the princess in exile. Our princess, though, knew this was her brother's direct order. The princess argued that running away alone was pointless. If their homeland fell, her fate would be no different from the demon tribes they were fighting. So, she rallied everyone to return and find a way to save the capital. Ines, after some deliberation, reluctantly agreed, but only if the princess stuck to her like glue. Even Rollo, feeling the weight of the situation, begged to join them on their trip back to the capital of Clace. His former demon comrades were leading the beast attacks, and he believed he could do something to stop them. Our unbothered lead, Nu, actually felt a pang of sympathy for the poor guy after hearing his story. He also, somewhat comically, lamented that he hadn't gotten to try the local frog meat before this whole saving the kingdom detour. On their way, Ren was naturally super worried about her brother and father back in the capital. But she had faith that someone who could casually humble an elite like Dan would definitely pull off something amazing. Our determined princess also declared that her true mission wasn't to flee. Instead, she needed to bring Master Nu back to the capital to somehow make him the accidental hero of the nation. She then told Ines to floor it, wanting to get back to the capital ASAP. Even before the Demon Empire's attack, King Rain had already evacuated all the citizens from the capital. The 6 Holy Knights were deployed, managing to barely hold off the enemy's initial assault. But our main man Ren knew this was just the warm-up act. He could feel something absolutely massive heading towards the royal capital. He just couldn't pinpoint where it was coming from. And just as Ren glanced up, he spotted a moving barrier sphere in the sky. It was soaring even higher than the clouds, leaving Ren utterly flabbergasted. Ren immediately used a dispel spell to break through the invisibility barrier, only to find a colossal black dragon hidden within, and Ren feared it was the legendary Calamity demon dragon. Ever since he was a kid, Nu had read stories about demon dragons in his father's books. Legend had it that they were evil dragons notorious for harming humans. Later, a brave adventurer courageously rose up and vanquished that very dragon. The items harvested, like dragon claws and fangs, became precious materials that brought prosperity to the land. And that adventurer was hailed by the people as the Dragon Slayer hero. After reading the story, little Nu dreamed of one day becoming a Dragon Slayer hero himself. But his dad told him that the dragon race had many super powerful dragons, and someone Nu's size would just end up as a snack. Suddenly, Nu felt a sense of danger that jolted him awake. And when they looked towards the royal capital, everyone collectively freaked out, spotting a gigantic demon dragon in the sky. Its sheer size was so immense that the citizens were absolutely terrified. Ren, on the other hand, couldn't believe that the enemy empire would actually weaponize a legendary creature like this. With just a single flap of its wings, it plunged the royal capital of Clace into utter chaos, prompting Ren to quickly order a full evacuation of all citizens from the city. Currently, every evacuation route was swarming with a large number of enemy troops, leaving the 6 Holy Knights bogged down, temporarily unable to regroup. On this side, Ren advised the king to retreat from the royal capital to ensure his safety. But the king simply told Rupert to prioritize the evacuation, while he himself would stay to face this demon dragon. Ines knew that wherever a demon dragon appeared, destruction followed, so both she and the princess were extremely worried about the king, because it was clear he would use himself as a human shield to protect his people. Nu, however, remained completely unbothered, calmly remarking that the dragon was indeed an absolute unit. This was his first time seeing such a super gigantic creature. Nu recalled how Ren's father and older brother had helped him a lot in the past, which is why Nu now wanted to rush straight to the royal capital to save them. If Ren used that wind magic technique on him again, he was sure he could make it back in time. Hearing this, Ren felt a glimmer of hope that his father could still be saved, even though using wind magic on a human was. But she believed Master Nu was so overwhelmingly powerful that her wind magic was practically a light breeze compared to his. The king also recalled his previous very unproductive negotiations with the Demon Empire. They arrogantly believed they could easily crush the Clace kingdom with sheer military might. The absolute clowns. But no matter how much they threatened, King Clay was never going to hand over the legendary treasure labyrinth. Turns out, the scumbag king of the Demon Empire just wanted the treasure labyrinth to fuel his petty world conquest fantasies. And after King Clay's refusal, the Demon King had the audacity to say he didn't have what it took to be a king. Through that conversation, King Clace realized the Demon Empire wanted the labyrinth at any cost, so now they just skipped negotiations entirely and declared war. And before stepping into this inevitable deathmatch, the king's only thoughts were of his beloved daughter. He truly believed he lacked the qualities of a king, seeing himself more fit for wielding a weapon on the battlefield than leading an entire nation. Now, he had to push all those thoughts aside and prepare to make short work of the approaching demon dragon. Meanwhile, Ines had used her holy shield to create a cylindrical tube, with Nu positioned at the front to absorb the full impact of Ren's incoming attack. This time, she was unleashing her absolute maximum magical power to launch her strongest wind spell yet. The resulting shockwave was going to be significantly more devastating than any wind spell she'd cast before. The moment Ren unleashed the attack, Nu was sent rocketing back towards the royal capital at an utterly absurd speed, and she could only hope Master Nu would arrive safely. Meanwhile, the dragon approached the king with a truly menacing snarl, ready for a fight. It was simultaneously gathering immense magical power for an attack that made the king's blood run cold. Apparently, this was the legendary Dragon's Breath, the very same one that had incinerated an entire continent millennia ago. But the king quickly regained his composure, not letting this legendary threat ruin his day. He drew his golden short sword and decided to unleash his ultimate divine sword explosion technique. According to the 6 holy knights, this technique consumed both the user's life force and all their magic, so they understood the king was essentially trying to trade his life for the demon dragons. However, before the king could even fully unleash his attack, Nu casually zoomed in, sword first, straight into the demon dragon's face, completely deflecting its apocalypse-level attack harmlessly into the sky. The spectators were left utterly dumbfounded, trying to process what had just happened to the legendary dragon. Even the mighty demon dragon itself was utterly bewildered, not quite grasping what had just smacked it. As it came to, the dragon realized it was that guy who had rudely interrupted its world-ending attack. Up until now, this demon dragon had always seen itself as the pinnacle of power, destined to stomp on the weak, and it absolutely could not tolerate anyone who dared defy that natural order. So the dragon let out an enraged roar and swung its massive tail at Nu. But Nu's casual counterattack once again sent the legendary beast sprawling face-first into the dirt. Nu, sighing in relief, remembered he had actually almost died a moment ago. Turns out, the instant he was launched, Nu had actually tripped on a stray rock, sending him spinning uncontrollably. Luckily, his overpowered physical enhancement skill kicked in, allowing him to barely regain his balance mid-flight. And as he neared the royal capital, he pulled off an absurdly powerful leap to clear the city walls entirely. But his speed was still ridiculously dangerously fast. If Nu hadn't slammed on the brakes, he would have literally plowed straight into the dragon. So, Nu with casual convenience just gave the dragon a quick smack, sending it face-planting once more. Nu vowed never to mess with Ren's wind magic again, because that shockwave was no joke. Nu, ever the chill protagonist, easily swatted away the dragon's attack, deciding its massive size was irrelevant now. Grabbing his greatsword, Nu casually decided to go a few hundred rounds with the overgrown lizard. Meanwhile, Ines was busy leading her group towards the king. While Nu was busy with his personal dragon-slaying side quest, Ines planned to get the king to safety. But Nu's ridiculously overpowered fight was causing buildings to literally fly apart all around them. Ines and her group couldn't dodge the chaos, so they all ended up tumbling to the ground. Luckily, Ines, our resident shield waifu, quickly deployed her shield to protect everyone from getting hurt. However, right in front of them stood a squad of elite goblins sent by the Demon Empire. Even if they weren't as ridiculously massive as the one Nu and Rain clapped before, Ines knew their power was no joke. At this moment, Nu's unbothered attitude flashed in Ren's mind, and she boldly declared, just like him, that they were just goblins. Nothing to be afraid of. Immediately after, all 3 elite goblins charged straight at Ren. Even with her ice magic, the goblins easily batted away her attacks. Seeing this, Rollo stepped in, using her monster manipulation skills to freeze them in place. Thanks to that, Rain was able to freeze all 3 goblins solid, and Ines materialized her holy sword, slicing them into tiny pieces. Witnessing Ines's power, Ren couldn't help but gasp in awe. She truly lived up to her title as the Holy Shield and Holy Sword wielder. Not only that, Rollo's monster manipulation was terrifyingly strong. A single word from her and those goblins were locked down. Meanwhile, Nu was still enthusiastically swinging his sword, effortlessly parrying every attack from the demon dragon. The dragon, bless its arrogant heart, always believed its divine body was impervious to harm. Yet now, from its claws to its scales, everything was getting chipped and cracked by Nu's casual assault. Nu, on the other hand, was busy admiring his super tough black sword, thinking he could probably fight this dragon till dawn if he wanted to. At this point, the dragon soared into the sky, ready to unleash its ultimate decisive attack. Because honestly, fighting Nu was proving to be a huge time waster, so it decided to finish him off quickly. Witnessing the demon dragon accumulate so much magical power made everyone visibly anxious. The king feared that the entire royal capital was about to be blown into oblivion. But just as the dragon unleashed its breath attack, Nu, with his signature move, once again parried it straight into the sky, causing a supermassive, colossal explosion that completely bleached the sky. The moment it landed, the dragon let out a furious roar, and Rollo quickly informed everyone that it was enraged because Nu treated it like a common house pet. The king knew demon dragons had immense pride, and this repeated defeat at Nu's hands was incredibly humiliating for it. The mighty dragon itself had to begrudgingly admit it was the weaker party here. With what little strength remained, it lunged straight at Nu, only to get its front teeth unceremoniously knocked out. Finally, the legendary dragon meekly collapsed before Nu, accepting its fate. Our legendary dragon instantly folded, its eyes now soft and totally devoid of that world-ending vibe it had just moments ago. Outside the city, everyone was absolutely flabbergasted that the demon dragon, the one that causes apocalypses for fun, was actually beaten. Meanwhile, Nu remembered some old fairy tale about an adventurer who defeated an evil dragon and became a legendary dragon-slaying hero. But Nu figured he just can't beat it, so he was way too far from being some legendary dragon slayer. Classic unbothered MC logic. And just then his whole squad rolled up to congratulate Nu on his totally casual win. Nu, being Nu, just assumed Rollo used some secret power to make the dragon chill, which is how he apparently survived. But Rollo just waved his hands, insisting he did absolutely nothing. Our dense hero, being dense, just figured the kid was trying to keep his powers on the down low from everyone else. Putting that aside for a hot minute, Nu then casually asked Rollo to just, escort the legendary dragon back to its lair. But Enos, being pragmatic, was like, nah, let's just butcher this beast right here, right now. It did destroy the entire royal capital after all. Luckily for the dragon, the princess actually caved to Nu's request and spared its life. She hoped Rollo could use his supposed powers to guide the dragon out of the royal capital, but Rollo insisted he absolutely did not have the power to control something this ridiculously huge. Nu, seeing this, just casually encouraged the kid to just give it a shot. What's the worst that could happen? Rollo communicated with the dragon, and it turns out the beast would obey anything its master said. Everyone present was absolutely flabbergasted to realize the demon dragon considered Nu its one true master. Nu, our perpetually dense lead, still stubbornly believed the dragon was talking about Rollo as its master, not him. So Nu finally had Rollo tell the dragon to just head back to its own place. And, no more harming humans from now on, cool? And, true to form, the dragon instantly obeyed its master's casual command. It let out a final roar, spread its massive wings, and gracefully flew off towards the northern kingdom. Nu, bless his naive heart, thought that was probably the end of it. But the dragon barely got out of dodge when a massive surge of magic zoomed in from afar, instantly blasting it out of the sky and sending it crashing into the northern forest. Turns out, King Doritos of the Magic Empire, a real piece of work, had brought his forces right up to Douglas' kingdom, and because his magic empire is basically a tech bro's dream, packed with advanced magic tech, they could easily shoot down a legendary dragon. For him, the demon dragon was just a convenient pawn to kick off a war. Doritos immediately ordered his grunts to begin the assault, and the moment a subordinate dropped the invisibility spell, the entire, massive magic empire army just poofed into existence. They were loaded with all sorts of high-tech gear, from magic-infused guns to literal magic accumulation cannons. Doritos' original plan was pretty straightforward: wipe the Glace Kingdom off the map in this very battle. First, they'd woken up the legendary demon dragon, then forced the demon tribe to use their powers to puppet it around. And while the demon dragon went wild causing chaos, the magic empire would just roll up to the royal capital undetected. His soldiers were decked out in all sorts of fancy high-tech gear, 3 impenetrable magic shield walls, plus 4 super high-power magic cannons. Doritos was utterly convinced this time he'd wipe out the G Kingdom and finally snatch their legendary labyrinth. But General Kaz, the voice of reason, desperately tried to stop him, arguing that this whole campaign was a terrible idea. And this clown of a king, however, just called his general an idiot before straight-up kicking him in the face. This dude seriously thought his demon empire hit peak tech, was officially unrivaled, and from now on, the whole world would know pain. Doritos' genius plan was to first nuke Kingdom G, then spin a fake story about how they were greedy for hogging some labyrinth, making the people suffer. Then, he'd swoop in as the hero, saving everyone from the foolish King Clace. What an absolute clown. Smooth, right? This way he'd basically yoink the kingdom and charm its citizens. Totally normal villain stuff. Meanwhile, Nu and his crew, because plot, quickly tracked down where that demon dragon decided to crash land. Not knowing if this legendary beast was still breathing, our casually curious Nu wanted to waltz right up and check. The catch? Right next to Nu was the Demon Empire's army, like tens of thousands of them, just chillin'. King Doritos, our favorite clown, totally spotted Nu's crew hanging out by the dragon. But nah, he only had eyes for Princess Rain and, more importantly, Enos. According to Doritos, Enos was the legendary warrior, basically famous for keeping the royal capital from getting completely flattened. He respected her, kind of. But Doritos, bless his heart, believed the age of legendary warriors was officially over. Now, it was all about that sweet, sweet knowledge tech. So progressive. So naturally, Doritos ordered his minions to aim their big, flashy magic cannons straight at Enos, because progress. He figured even with her legendary holy shield, she'd be vaporized in a single heartbeat. Classic villain underestimation. In his eyes, no legend stood a chance against him. A moment later, the magic cannon started its dramatic energy charging sequence. You know the one. And the second our glorious king gave the fire order, that cannon blasted a giant light beam straight at Enos. Luckily, Enos had already clocked that the Demon Empire was rolling up with a ridiculous amount of modern weaponry, and among them, a very suspicious cannon. So she quickly told Princess Rain and Rollo to bounce. Enos thought she could block this thing, but its speed was so ridiculous, even she was taken by surprise. Uh-oh. But, because our boy Nu has literal plot armor, he popped up just in time, casually deflecting that magic beam skyward with parries, whatever that is. His entire group just stared with wide eyes, completely flabbergasted. Meanwhile, the enemy grunts assumed they hadn't charged up enough magic power, so they immediately started prepping for round 2. News Group, however, quickly put two and two together. The Demon Empire's massive army was here to flatten Kingdom G, and the royal capital's forces stood no chance against such overwhelming numbers. Big yikes. Ines and the princess decided to head back to the royal capital and team up with Rain's army for defense. But before they could even think about leaving, the enemy's next, totally unexpected, attack came zooming in. This time, Ines actually got her legendary Holy Shield out, blocking their entire barrage of magic bullets. Impressive. The Demon Empire saw that, and surprise, surprise, they started getting a little nervous about Ines's power. As they should. Our brave king, feeling oh so slightly threatened, immediately booked it to the backlines and dumped all the responsibility on his minions. Peak leadership. Nu realized that if they just stood there taking fire, they'd be stuck. So, he told the other three to hightail it back to the royal capital. He'd stay behind to hold them off for a bit, then just peace out himself. Classic Nu. Our boy Nu admitted he wasn't exactly a combat expert, but when it came to running away, oh, he was practically a world champion. Unmatched. Apparently, ever since he was a kid, Nu's favorite hobby was poking beehives and then bolting for the hills when the bees came for him. A true strategist. This time, he'd put all his years of bee-chasing experience to good use, running in circles to buy everyone else time to escape. What a hero. The princess, seeing his unique strategy, decided to give him a little boost. Turns out she used wind magic to supercharge Nu's already impressive escape speed. Talk about enabling. Problem is, last time she did that, Nu nearly peed his pants, so he was not looking to relive that particular trauma. Good luck, dude. However, the princess said she'd keep the power in check this time, so it was all good. Just then, everyone noticed the enemy's cannon charging up magic for a shot, so the princess quickly wished Nu well and yeeted him with wind magic. Even with the princess holding back, Nu's eyes still popped out from the sheer wind pressure. When he finally came to, our boy just casually deflected the enemy's attack with his sword. And every time a magic cannonball came flying, Nu swung his sword, hitting them all without missing a beat. Moving at blinding speed, Nu boldly dashed straight into the enemy lines. But instead of killing anyone, he just zipped around, knocking away all their gear. Swords, shields, everything just went flying into the sky, leaving the soldiers utterly bewildered about what just hit them. Even the king couldn't fathom who this random guy Nu was, or why he was so ridiculously powerful. The king's face actually twisted in fear just from the wind our boy stirred up. Doritus, meanwhile, started sweating buckets when Nu suddenly materialized behind him. As for all the weapons Nu had sent soaring, they started raining down on the shieldless soldiers, giving them a taste of their own medicine. Not done yet, Nu kept running circles, disarming all the modern gear, and casually sweeping aside enemy soldiers in his path. He even gave the king a little friendly tap on the way. The king had no idea what Nu was munching on to be moving that impossibly fast. Everywhere Nu ran, weapons just kept flying up into the sky. Nu stopped next to Doritus again, leaving the old man utterly flustered because Nu was only interested in him, completely ignoring the other guards. The old man thought Nu was there to end him, especially with that predatory stare that basically screamed, "I'm gonna eat you alive." Despite being absolutely terrified, he remembered he was rocking some seriously blinged out legendary gear, so he drew his pathetic, rusty sword. With trembling hands, he prepared for a fight to the death with Nu, but our boy had no time for old man games, so he zoomed past and effortlessly sent all 4 cannons flying. Durat was utterly helpless, watching 10,000 of his soldiers get bodied in the blink of an eye. Even his modern weapons, like 3 massive shields that could withstand dragon's breath and 4 grand cannons capable of scorching magic dragon scales, were now utterly useless. And after literally doing a few exercise laps, Nu returned to Doritus. Doritus then recognized the black sword Nu was holding. It belonged to King Clace, and was also the most coveted labyrinth treasure he'd ever wanted. Durat knew that black sword was so heavy, a normal person couldn't even lift it, and even King Clace needed 2 hands for it. But Nu was just casually wielding it with 1 hand, making Durat realize he was dealing with an absolute monster. To top it all off, Nu flashed a dark smile, making Doritus think he was about to be captured and tortured, which naturally made the poor guy pee his pants. The old man frantically scrambled to his horse and galloped straight back to his kingdom. By now, in his terrified eyes, Nu was basically the Demon King himself. Rewind a few minutes. Nu's initial goal was just to run around and knock away literally everything in his path. And after completing his little run-through, Nu stumbled upon the old King Doritus. Never having met him, Nu just assumed he was some regular old geezer who got caught up in this mess. Though, with all that blinged-out golden armor, he probably figured he was just some rich dude playing dress-up. But Nu didn't have time for existential thoughts, so he just kept running around, casually disarming the enemy army. Our guy knew if these chumps got their gear back and attacked en masse, his casual chaos run might actually be in trouble. Right now, Nu's path was blocked by massive shields and a quartet of cannons. He didn't know what these things were, and frankly, he didn't care. If it was in the way, it was getting bonked. Mid-run, Nu accidentally sideswiped the actual king a few times without even noticing. Naturally, King Darius, the arrogant old fool, thought Nu was just toying with him, savoring the kill. Clutching his rusty, flea-bitten sword, Darius swore he wouldn't be teased anymore and decided to make a stand against our oblivious hero. But honestly, the king looked so pathetic that even Nu felt a twinge of pity for the poor guy. So our considerate hero decided to just finish his final lap, casually wrecking all the remaining enemy gear. He even hoped the old king would just run away, because staying there would definitely be bad for his health. But of course Darius, still convinced he was the main character, thought Nu was absolutely coming for his head. Honestly, Nu couldn't really blame him, especially since he was casually lugging around this absolutely massive cheat code-looking sword. So, our kind-hearted country boy decided to flash a friendly smile, just to reassure the king he meant no harm. But instead, that friendly smile looked exactly like a literal demon's, terrifying the king so much he instantly soiled himself. Suddenly, our OP lead's body finally hit its limit, sending him collapsing to the ground. He even started spitting blood. Turns out all that casual chaos and running was actually exhausting. And just like that, the high and mighty Demon Empire soldiers saw their chance, swarming to finish off our temporarily incapacitated hero. But before they could even get close, a perfectly timed volley of arrows rained down, stopping them dead in their tracks. Nu instantly recognized the signature skill of his former instructor, the absolute powerhouse Milala, clearly still one of his resident waifus in training. And just for good measure, Rupert, another familiar face, crashed into the battlefield, casually knocking away soldiers to clear a path for Nu's rescue. And despite the fact these two had totally clashed before, our perpetually clueless Nu still couldn't recall Rupert's name. But wait, there's more. Not just Rupert, but Nu's legendary master, Sai, also showed up, thanking our hero for bravely holding his own against literal tens of thousands of enemies. Sai reassured Nu that he and his elite 6 holy knights would handle the rest, so our boy could just chill and recover. And true to his word, Sai instantly unleashed a devastating sword storm, casually wiping out a huge chunk of the remaining enemies. Nu immediately recognized the move as one Sai used to casually flex with back when our boy was still training under him. Even though it was a skill Nu had always secretly coveted, he unfortunately never quite got the hang of it himself. Meanwhile, observing the battlefield from a safe distance, we have Oken and Sen. And Sen, ever the tactician, had a brilliant idea: capture a massive number of enemy soldiers for some friendly interrogation. Oken, getting the memo, instantly called forth a team of mages to unleash a combined spell. In mere moments, the enemy soldiers found themselves magically bound at the feet, utterly unable to move. Talk about a magic-rooted debuff. Then Oken, showing off some next-level earth magic, conjured massive walls to completely surround and trap them. And then, Sen's mages would proceed to use holy elemental magic to enlighten the enemy, making them repent and spill all their secrets. Talk about a high-tier interrogation technique. Our boy Nu recognized them instantly as the very instructors from his old training academy, still casually doing god-tier things. Funnily enough, the 6 holy knights also recognized Nu as that one clueless kid they somehow managed to train way back when. Just then, the princess, showing up fashionably late as royalty does, arrived on the scene and used her top-tier healing magic to get Nu back on his feet. And just like that, the captured enemy soldiers were already enlightened and thoroughly interrogated. They confessed that their entire battle prowess hinged solely on that demon dragon and some fancy modern magic tools. As for that emperor, he rode straight back to the magic empire, completely chickening out, making Oken think Emperor Doritos was just a pathetic old fool. Hearing Oken mention an old man, Nu recalled seeing him earlier, decked out in shimmering golden armor. Even his horse was flexing. Oken immediately recognized them as peak-tier equipment, granting users a whole buffet of powerful skills. No wonder that guy managed to bolt so fast. Oken also figured Doritos had probably crossed the border by now, making a horseback pursuit impossible. But if they could fly, their forces might just be able to nab him in time. Hearing that, Nu immediately gathered everyone to go check on the demon dragon's condition. As long as it was still breathing, they could all catch a ride and fly with ease. Oken was completely awestruck, seeing a legendary creature with his own eyes for the very first time. And this was also the first time Sen had ever gotten to heal a dragon this massive. In mere moments, Sen had completely healed all of its wounds, no sweat. While he was at it, he also praised Nu, noting how much his disciple had grown since they last met. Nu also greeted his 2 teachers after years apart, and they immediately wondered how in the world they were all casually riding such a fierce dragon. Nu just turned to Rollo and casually said that this kid would handle everything, so they could all chill. At this point, the dragon had regained consciousness after its healing session and let out a massive roar, clearly showing its absolute fury. Rollo informed everyone that the demon dragon was itching for revenge, and as soon as its master gave the order, it was ready to take flight. Oken was completely flabbergasted, never imagining Nu could actually tame this dragon. But Nu insisted that it was all Rollo's power, saying he himself didn't contribute a single thing. Nu's group would set off together for Doritas' kingdom, with Rollo's job being to help everyone communicate with the demon dragon. And Ines would go along with Princess Ren to protect the little guy. Nu initially tried to beg off, saying he'd been terrified of heights since he was a kid, but after the princess encouraged him, he reluctantly had to go along. Sai also wanted to come along to handle the negotiations with the enemy. As for Karin, she would use stealth magic to conceal the dragon while it was flying. Hearing that, Nu immediately realized this was Karin, the rogue instructor who had spent months training him. Too bad he wasn't exactly the best student. Oken also wanted to join, but Sen thought he'd be better off staying home to deal with the incoming enemy hordes. Just then, Prince Ren arrived, saying he would also come along to negotiate with the enemy. And when Ines saw the prince appear, she immediately knelt down, asking to receive all punishments, because she had disobeyed the prince's order not to send the princess to Micha for exile. But Ren asserted that he was the one who gave the foolish order, so Ines wasn't at fault at all. Before they set off, the king had granted Prince Ran full authority to make all decisions. At the same time, he also hoped Nu could help him keep his two children safe. Immediately after, Rollo had the dragon take off, carrying everyone on their way towards the Magic Empire. Meanwhile, Danjiak and Sai were staring at Nu with pure unadulterated awe. Because from the moment the battle started, the supposed 6 holy knights hadn't gotten a single moment to flex. And get this, they actually tried to take Nu under their wing and teach him a thing or two back in the day. Honestly, that's just peak cringe. Now, all they could do was stand back and watch Nu casually dismantle the entire battlefield. Nu looked like a hero straight out of a legend, making Sai realize he was, in fact, incredibly weak and completely unqualified to be Nu's teacher. So from now on, he's dedicating himself to training from square one, just to make sure his blade doesn't get rusty. During their flight, they couldn't find a single trace of King Doritas, so the squad figured he probably made a beeline for the royal capital. Classic villain move. After soaring over some seriously treacherous ravines, the group finally closed in on an iron bridge. Apparently, crossing this bridge meant they'd officially be stepping into the dreaded Demon Empire. Just then, the princess spotted our fleeing King Doritas literally hauling butt across the bridge, and the Demon Empire's border had a seriously strong, not-so-easy-to-breach defense system. Prince Rain, however, was dead set on not letting Doritas get away, knowing the king had tons of powerful weapons and would definitely be back to invade G. Catching him now would basically end the war. Noticing everyone's worry about the enemy's defenses, Ines calmly requested permission to go full-on battle mode. The princess knew Ines was usually pretty chill, and never proactively asked to charge into battle, but Glace Royal Capital just got stomped on by the enemy, so Ines was probably secretly fuming. And of course, Prince Rain gave Ines the green light to unleash hell, so she casually whipped up a holy sword and sliced through the entire city wall in a single, effortless stroke. Then Ines just kept going, swinging her sword and effortlessly carving up all the enemy's defensive castles along the border. Talk about a speedrun, Ines had the path-clearing job done in record time. Meanwhile, Prince R decided they'd chase Doritas all the way back to the capital, so he warned his little sister Ren to brace herself, because they were about to step into a real fight. Ren, looking around, couldn't help but feel like everyone in their party was impossibly overpowered. Plus, they had Teacher Nu in the squad, who had single-handedly sent the entire Demon Empire army packing. Ren probably thought he was deep in thought, soaking in the team's burning resolve. But plot twist, our boy Nu was actually battling a severe case of acrophobia, on the verge of fainting, and definitely not listening to a single word. Meanwhile, our cowardly old king actually made it back to the royal capital just in time to save his hide. For now, the Demon Empire's palace was tucked away inside a massive fortress, absolutely bristling with magical reactors. The moment he stepped inside, the old king was practically spitting mad. His bewildered subordinates just stared, having no idea what had gotten their king so riled up. He immediately started ranting that his entire army was a bunch of good-for-nothing nobodies. Despite being armed with all these super-fancy weapons, they still managed to suffer a pathetic defeat. Just then, everyone collectively freaked out as a calamitous magic dragon suddenly appeared in the sky. Even though it had been blasted out of the sky by a magic cannon earlier, Doritas immediately realized Sen must have used some high-tier healing magic to patch it up. And whoever could control a magic dragon like that? Definitely a demon. So Doritas frantically rushed off to find his subordinate, who was supposed to be in charge of, managing the demons. But his subordinates reported back, completely deadpan, that the guy had apparently left to go play and wasn't around anymore. Hearing this, Doritas, the resident hothead, completely lost it, grabbing his poor subordinate and giving him a piece of his mind. He then barked orders at General Krill to somehow magically stop the enemy's inevitable advance. On top of that, he had his guys prep the legendary, possibly catastrophic, super magic cannon. His subordinates immediately tried to talk him out of it, pointing out the weapon was still in its highly experimental, may explode phase. Using it would pretty much guarantee a self-inflicted disaster. But Doritos, being the genius he is, just called them all idiots, insisting only the super cannon could take down the dragon menace. The subordinate kept pleading, warning him that the cannon would level half their own facilities. Doritos, clearly a master of diplomacy, simply drop-kicked the poor guy into a wall for daring to speak. He stubbornly repeated that one shot was all it would take to make that magic dragon poof into oblivion. Oh, and he also had his engineers cram in a magical targeting system for pinpoint accuracy. What could go wrong, right? Right on cue, every single magic reactor in the facility powered down, funneling all their energy into this one colossal shot. Doritos was absolutely convinced this one shot would be a glorious flex, demonstrating the unparalleled might of his cutting-edge magical tech. But as the shot reached its target, Nu, our unbothered lead, casually smacked it straight up into the stratosphere, leaving Doritos absolutely gobsmacked, jaw practically hitting the floor. The cannonball, now splintered into a million pieces, started raining down as deadly shrapnel. Oh, but wait, that was Doritos' brilliant magic tracking feature, meaning now all those magic reactors were the primary targets. Chef's kiss, truly. Doritos, completely fuming, started ranting about which absolute moron thought adding that feature was a good idea. Dude, it was literally you, just 5 minutes ago, who ordered that exact feature to be added. His subordinates, having reached their absolute limit with the king's baffling idiocy, simply tossed their badges, resigned on the spot, and wished him good luck before noping out of the palace faster than you can say disaster. So now, Doritos Bever was all alone in his crumbling palace, servantless, forced to watch his own brilliant cannon shrapnel destroy every single one of his precious magical inventions. Cutting back a few minutes, Prince Ren's squad was busy trying to track down Doritos within the maze of magic reactors. But with so many dense magical structures around, Karen couldn't get a clear read on his aura. Suddenly, a massive magic cannon blast shot up from below, catching the entire group off guard. Seeing the sheer power of the beam, Ines quickly told everyone to get behind her. But Nu, being Nu, fearlessly charged ahead and effortlessly swatted the cannonball straight up into the heavens. And since he'd just leapt off the dragon's back to do that, he was now just casually free-falling towards the ground. Oops. Luckily, Nu resourcefully deployed his massive greatsword like a makeshift parachute, significantly reducing his impact before landing right in the palace. Meanwhile, General Crew and his loyal comrades were busy pinning all the blame for the current chaos squarely on that old fool of a king. They were absolutely convinced he was the sole reason the Demon Empire was staring down the barrel of impending doom. For the fate of the entire kingdom, Kaz decided it was time to literally take Doritos' head right then and there. But just as Kaz raised his sword, Nu casually dropped in right in the middle of their tense meeting, accidentally saving the old man's life. Nu, ever the innocent, realized this was that shiny yellow old man he'd just briefly encountered on the battlefield. And he genuinely thought these soldiers were just ganging up to bully, so our boy just casually advised everyone to chill out and talk it over. Seeing our protagonist show up, Kaz's squad immediately started blasting at Nu with their guns. He instantly used a counterattack to defend himself, while simultaneously shoving the old guy down for protection. Even though Krill's whole squad rushed him, they couldn't do a thing to Nu, believing he was protecting the old king who'd pushed their nation to the brink. Nu still advised them to calm down and talk, but of course, these guys weren't having it. Someone even pulled out a grenade and tossed it at the king, trying to take him out for good. Seeing this, Nu casually drop-kicked the old king straight into the wall to dodge the attack, and then wondered why these young bucks were bullying an old man like that. Cruz didn't have time to explain to Nu, continuing to hurl grenades at the king, forcing Nu to literally throw him somewhere else for safety. And after a few rounds of Nu's accidental abuse, the old king finally passed out cold. Meanwhile, Crew pleaded for Nu to step aside, claiming he needed to deliver the king's head to save the country from disaster. Right at that moment, Prince Ren's squad finally made their grand entrance, and immediately told them to chill, because this old king needed to live and account for every single one of his crimes. Ren also asked Nu to hand everything over so he and the 10 founders could handle it. Meanwhile, Ren was tasked with healing his master. Ren then urged the 10 founders to lower their weapons, stating he had no intention of fighting. And first things first, Ren wanted to chat with the old king to hear his side of the story. Seeing this, Durat quickly begged Ren to spare his old life. But Ren, ever the meticulous one, listed out every single damage the old man had caused. All in all, over 100 innocent lives were lost due to the king's attacks. And only if the old king fully experienced their suffering would Ren spare his life. The 10 founders heard this and instantly agreed, no objections whatsoever. So Sane and Karin immediately went to the king and began detailing their prisoner interrogation methods. The old king's body, from skin to internal organs, would have to endure unimaginable pain. And just as he was about to kick the bucket, San would heal him back to prime condition, only to restart the punishment. If the old king ever passed out, Karin would just wake him up to continue the torment. Hearing this, the old king was so terrified he literally wet himself, and Ren informed him that this was the Ji Kingdom's policy of humanitarian justice. Only after experiencing the full extent of his karmic suffering would Ren grant him forgiveness. Ren had finished healing all the injuries on Nu's body. Seeing all the destruction around him, Nu felt incredibly guilty, fearing that innocent civilians had died because of him. But Ren casually informed him that this entire area was a magical reactor zone, so no one actually lived there. At this point, Ren's squad returned after negotiating with the 10 founders. He explained that both nations would now join forces to clean up the aftermath of the war. As for the old emperor, he conveniently abdicated, ceding the throne to his 10-year-old grandson, with the 10 founders becoming his royal advisors. Even the legendary 10 great powers showed up, practically bowing down to Nu, admitting that if he hadn't casually intervened to save the king, the entire nation would have been in civil war. But our unbothered farming king just casually told them to chill out and maybe not gang up on a poor old man like that ever again. Our hero also tossed a casual thanks to the Demon Empire for cushioning his fall back when he plummeted from the dragon's back. Lucky for him, there was a conveniently sturdy floor ready for his landing. Koss naturally had to stifle a laugh when he heard Nu genuinely thanking a literal floor. From that moment on, the legendary 10 great powers swore to have Nu's back whenever our cozy lead accidentally stumbled into trouble. Matching their enthusiasm, Nu, our unbothered farming king, promised to return the favor with his full accidental might. For example, if they ever needed someone to mix mortar, haul bricks, or even unclog a sewer, he was totally ready to lend a hand. Right on cue, the legendary dragon, looking bored, decided it was time to head home, so Prince Ren also said his goodbyes and left the Demon Empire for Kingdom G. On his way out, Krill officially introduced himself to Nu, wishing for a future, totally not a harem flag reunion. The demon dragon immediately soared off towards capital G, and Nu, our accidentally overpowered country boy, was just praying Rolo would fly lower because he was seriously about to puke. The king was absolutely thrilled to learn Ren had wrapped up negotiations with the Demon Empire, especially since he knew this whole victory was 90% Nu's accidental doing. So Ren, being a good wingman, suggested his father grant Nu a super well-deserved reward. Even though Nu, our humble farming king, tried to politely wiggle out of it, the king absolutely insisted he take the reward this time. After a moment of deep contemplation, Nu finally spilled his one big request. First on the list, he wanted the king to accept Rolo as a perfectly normal, non-dragon controlling citizen. This way, the kid could have a comfortable, happy life, because Nu, with peak humble flex energy, declared a low-income guy like him could never properly raise a child. And all those other glorious rewards, like vast lands and mountains of gold. Nu, of course, just casually passed them all to Rolo too. Because let's be honest, it was Rolo's accidental charm that got the big evil dragon to listen, thus ending the war. Rolo, the shy boy, tried to stammer out that he didn't actually do anything, but as usual his words completely failed him. Nu, meanwhile, just doubled down to the king, insisting he truly needed zero wealth for himself. He just wished the king would use all those resources to help the citizens who'd tragically lost their homes in the recent war. The king, hearing such an undeniably righteous and utterly humble request, couldn't argue with that logic, so he agreed to every single one of Nu's decisions. Unfortunately, Rolo was still plagued by nightmares from his traumatic time being held captive. But then he'd jolt awake and remember he was now living a surprisingly full and comfortable life. Turns out, Ines, our resident tsundere elf, had taken Rolo into her own home to care for him. She even whipped up a ridiculously lavish meal for the boy, hoping they could now lean on each other more in their new cozy life. Rolo, bless his heart, actually stared at the food and wondered if it was even edible, because ever since he was born, he'd always been treated like a total slave, and had never seen anything remotely close to a proper meal. The moment he took a bite of the bread, Rolo burst into tears, raving about how unbelievably delicious it was, and Ines instantly understood all the hidden suffering the poor kid had endured. The evacuated citizens were slowly but surely making their way back to the capital, and everyone was pitching in to clear the rubble and rebuild their homes. Nu, observing the aftermath, couldn't help but feel the sheer devastation and tragedy surrounding them all. Luckily, the Adventurers Guild, always ready for action, emerged completely unscathed. Picking up the guild sign, Nu felt a wave of nostalgia hit him. 15 years ago, our country boy Nu went all alone to the big city, hoping to register as an adventurer. But after all his training, he only picked up a few absolutely trash-tier skills, so the guildmaster couldn't, in good conscience, let him join. Little did anyone know, 15 years later, he'd be crossing paths with these very instructors again. Thinking back, after getting a referral from the guildmaster, Nu headed straight for Sai's sword-fighting school. Even though Sai warned him the training would be absolutely brutal, Nu's determination won him over, and he was accepted on the spot. And sure enough, Nu showed a will so strong it actually impressed Sai. The first 10 days were a grueling gauntlet of training, But Nu never once thought of quitting. He even broke his arm during a test, yet his eyes showed no fear, making Sai believe this kid had serious potential. After a month of sword practice, Nu asked Sai to teach him some actual sword techniques, so the master took him outside to demonstrate his skill and see if Nu could pick it up. First, Sai casually fanned a bunch of dry leaves into the air, then drew his sword and cleanly sliced them in half, leaving Nu absolutely dumbfounded. Apparently, Sai's move was so absurdly fast, a normal human eye could barely keep up. But plot twist. Nu actually observed every single one of Sai's sword swings, making Sai believe that with enough training, this kid would become an absolute prodigy. However, after 3 months of grueling practice, Nu only mastered one single basic move, so Sai finally advised him that any more training would just be a colossal waste of time. Maybe Nu should just try a different training school. Who knows, maybe he'd actually find his talent somewhere else. Leaving the Sword Academy behind, Nu then headed to Dan Jiak's fighter training school. Knowing Nu had just been through Sai's training, Dan Jiak reluctantly agreed to take him on. According to Dan Jiak, a true fighter is the unyielding shield for their comrades on the battlefield. But seeing Nu's scrawny, frail body, he honestly wondered if the kid would even last a day. Dan Jiak, however, was genuinely surprised when Nu actually stuck it out for 2 months of brutal training, displaying an unwavering resolve that even astonished the master. He then truly believed Nu would become an unyielding shield in every sense of the word. However, after another 3 months of training, Nu had only mastered a single basic physical enhancement skill, so Dan Jiak gently suggested he probably just give up. Because, honestly, forcing himself any further would only end with him getting himself killed. Ditching the fighter school, Nu then set off for the archer training academy run by the female instructor Mila. Finding Nu's persistence utterly annoying, she reluctantly agreed, but only if he could pass a 50-meter stone-throwing test. On his very first throw, Nu nailed the target dead center, leaving Mila utterly speechless. She thought it was pure beginner's luck, but then Nu proceeded to not miss a single throw. Eventually, Mila had no choice but to accept Nu into her school. However, for days after that, Nu was only allowed to practice throwing rocks, never even getting to touch a bow. Only after a full month of chucking rocks did Mila finally deign to lend Nu his very first bow. But every single bow Nu even laid a hand on instantly snapped in half, leaving Mila utterly speechless. Even Mila's personal bow ended up breaking, so she finally told Nu to just stick to Nu's rock throwing became so good he was literally piercing shields, making Mila wonder where this country boy picked up such an absurdly accurate skill. Our boy casually mentioned he used to hunt some fancy rabbit-eating birds with rocks back home since he was a kid. Just normal farm boy stuff, you know. Mila's jaw dropped when she realized he was talking about thunderbirds, legendary beasts that even seasoned hunters couldn't dream of catching. So why was this absolute unit even in a combat academy, consistently hitting these mythic beasts? Mila couldn't figure it out. It seemed like a total waste of his time. 3 months later, Mila officially recommended Nu transfer, noting his absolute lack of talent with a bow and arrow. But hey, she figured, Nu was already strong enough without needing any fancy archer skills anyway. A few days later, Nu found himself transferring to Karen's thief training academy. Conveniently, there was a training session scheduled that day, so Karen immediately threw Nu into the mix to test his mettle. Nu's mission was simple: stealthily approach the target without making a single sound. Karen noted the kid's surprisingly agile movement skills, but of course, Nu was still a total newbie and couldn't quite sneak up on Karen just yet. Nu's next challenge involved navigating a series of traps before unlocking a treasure chest. And this is where Nu truly started to flex, showing everyone just how different he was from the other recruits. He effortlessly sailed through all the dangerous traps, one after another, even using his skills to support his teammates, which completely floored Karen. However, after 3 months, our boy still couldn't grasp any of the essential skills needed to be an actual thief. Bless his heart. But what he lacked in thieving skills, he made up for with superhuman endurance and stubbornness, leading Karen to plan on recruiting him to the Royal Intelligence Squad once he became an adventurer. Leaving the Thief Academy behind, Nu was off to his next adventure, Oaken's magic school. But after 2 months of trying to activate his magic by mostly flexing his glutes, he still couldn't get a single magical current flowing through his body. So Oaken resorted to his last-ditch effort, sending Nu into the magic resonance chamber, sternly warning him to get out immediately if he felt even a twinge of discomfort. But several days passed, and Nu still hadn't emerged, sending Oaken into a full-blown panic. No ordinary kid could withstand such amplified magic for that long. When he finally pried the door open, Oaken found Nu diligently meditating, only to be promptly told to scram. "Old man, I'm trying to train here." After 3 months, Nu was deeply disappointed to discover he could only conjure a tiny, pathetic little flame. Oaken was convinced then and there that Nu was definitely not cut out to be a mage. However, Nu did possess an absurd ability to cast multiple spells simultaneously, a feat that took Oaken himself 50 years to achieve, which left the old man utterly flabbergasted. Oken could only sigh with regret, thinking if only Nu had a better constitution, he might have become a legendary mage. A few days later, Nu was off again, this time for shaman training under Master Sen. But because Nu hadn't performed the sacred blessing ritual yet, Sen couldn't officially accept him as a student. Nu, however, was nothing if not persistent, declaring he'd wait right there until Sen finally agreed. And true to his word, for many days, Nu refused to budge an inch from Sen's doorstep, even as the snow piled up around him. Our unbothered lead just stood there, waiting for Sen's acceptance. Finally, after days of not eating, Nu collapsed from exhaustion. At that point, Sen, feeling a mix of pity and exasperation, healed Nu and granted him a special exception to join the class. However, after 3 months of training, the only spell Nu managed to master was a basic recovery chant. This was a skill literally no adventurer cared about, which, understandably, made Nu pretty bummed out. Sen was still trying to hype him up, saying that for someone so young, Nu's healing magic was super impressive. But our boy Nu, he just wanted to go back home and pursue his true calling, farming and fish-keeping. The 6 holy knights were genuinely blindsided by the news that Nu had just pieced out of the royal capital. Sen regretted not being able to keep him, knowing how hardworking and capable our protagonist truly was. He figured if the 6 holy knights trained him, Nu could probably become an absurdly overpowered hero. The whole squad agreed, having seen Nu's dedication firsthand. Some even suggested leaving the royal capital right then and there to track him down. And so, a squad of elite holy knights set out to find Nu, completely unaware our boy had already zoomed straight back to his farm. Back in the present, Nu returned the guild signboard to the guild master. Seeing Nu's mud-splattered clothes, the guild master instantly assumed he was looking for a cleaning gig. So the guild master casually mentioned that the head of the construction guild was actually looking for him. Immediately, Nu was back to his true calling as an honest laborer, and with his help, their work somehow sped up like crazy. Only then did Nu finally have a moment to process everything that just went down, from that poisonous frog to the super-strong assassin. Not to mention getting yeeted by Rain's wind magic twice, and then just a whole avalanche of other absurd things. Just thinking about it made him mentally exhausted. By the end of the day, with an empty stomach, his insides were rumbling like a full orchestra. But our dedicated country boy still decided he had to finish his shift before he could even think about food. Meanwhile, the king just got the full report from his son, confirming that the Micha Empire had absolutely double-crossed their kingdom, because the Demon Empire's gear all featured unique magic stones that only Mira could craft. So the king knew for a fact that peaceful days were now officially off the table. Luckily, the kingdom currently boasts some seriously reliable warriors. Whenever war rolls around, they always step up to protect the common folk. Not to mention the strongest guy in the royal capital, Nu, is still around, and he was even pulling an all-nighter helping the villagers rebuild their homes. Ren, who was out delivering food, spotted Nu clearing rubble, so she immediately went over to check on her master. And, thank him for all the craziness from yesterday. When she heard Nu's orchestral stomach, Ren immediately handed him a bread roll for breakfast. She just hoped Nu wouldn't push himself too hard and would actually take care of himself. Nu always felt like he was constantly the one being helped by everyone. Even his super durable black sword was a massive help, whether he was fighting or just doing manual labor. Even though he hadn't pulled off any legendary heroics yet, Nu still believed he'd one day become the hero from his dad's old stories. And with that, our tale of the world's strongest adventurer comes to a cozy close. If you enjoyed this cozy flex, make sure to like and subscribe to support the channel. Until next time.